Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Location: unknown, specific location: unknown. Now, in front of a steel spiky gate that reached high in the air for meters covered the area in a surrounding prison, the blooded stained, and broken scratched gate showed everyone what might have been there to cause this. This gate, or cage, held many unknown things that might kill you without a trace. Many traps in this very gate were held to kill all of its victims. This was known as the Forest of Death, and for a reason. Many ninja, Junin, Chunin, Genin, and others, all died here for a number of different reasons. Either they were stupid, desperate, or want to prove their strength, leaving very few to survive. There, in front of many Genins, stood the purple-haired Kunyuchi Anko Mitarashi, who overlooked the countless Genins that had entered. Her pale brown jacket flew like a flag by the wind as she stood up and looked at all those with her purple pupilless eyes. She stood in front of two large black speakers holding a black microphone connecting to those speakers. There she cleared her throat before announcing to the might-be new Chunins. Alright maggots. Anko Mitarashi here for the new Chunin exams held here in Konoha today speaking. Anko announced. Today we the people of Konoha here welcome our guests from the hidden sand and sound villages here. This exams in a way is to show our bonds and alliance with the villages that have attacked us due to the treachery of Orochimaru. Anko said. She caught her breath, and once again spoke. As a Konoha ninja I hereby welcome you to Konoha, and hope you have pleasant time here. Anko said, before she turned off the microphone, therefore releasing a rather irritable sound of static for a few seconds. Despite the fact I really don't trust these bastards for what happened last time. Anko growled in thought, before leaving the stage, for a Junin to come by and pick up the mic. As last time some of you may know what it's about. But for those who don't, let me explain. He announced. We'll be giving everyone here a scroll each, a heaven and earth scroll. These scrolls would be given to one team at one each. For instance, the heaven scroll would be given to one team. And the earth scroll given to another. It's that simple. He explained. Your mission would be to take the other team's scroll, therefore only half of you would remain. He continued. Gasps and whispers were heard all over the area for a few moments, until. It's a test for an escort mission, or delivery mission. You would be needed to take and deliver an artifact or a scroll for this case. It's to show that you ninja are worthy to be called Chunin. He finished, before leaving the stage. Naruto, who was standing with Sasuke and Sakura between him, looked at the stage. It's the same rules as before, this is easy. Naruto said, with his arms behind his back. Right, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked with a smile. I'm not sure about Naruto-kun. Sakura replied. Even if we know what it's about, we don't know much about the Genins or teams that have entered this time. Sakura said. I hope they aren't as tough as last time. Naruto said. Which Sakura had to agree to. Team 7 could remember what happened last time. Attacked by a Sannin. Attacked by a team of sound nins. Attacked by a one-tailed Jinchuriki. And invaded by its thought to be allies. All they could remember was the events that took place just before them with their eyes. Well, we have been getting stronger since then, so we may as well not have to worry. Sasuke said. This time no one can beat us. Naruto said with determination. By then all the Genins were already lined up to a small rectangular tent, pale purple, and had been closed, only allowing one member of a team to enter, therefore keeping whatever scrolls they pick a secret. One more thing. Called a Junin. Some of you may not have enough members on your team, so we'll pass out numbers to those. He pulled out a box containing pieces of paper, many small pieces of paper, and those had purple, yellow, and green linings on them. These pieces of papers have numbers on them for certain teams. Whoever doesn't have a team will pick one. Purple is for a team from the Sound Village. Yellow is a team from the Sand Village. And green is a team from the Leaf Village. Pick one. The Junin explained. And soon many people without a team lined up for them. Team 10, green. Adam said, as he picked a piece of paper from the box. He looked at the Junin. Where's Team 10 of the Leaf Village? He asked. That would be Ino Yakamana, and Choji Akamaiki over there. He replied, as he pointed at Choji and Ino at the distance, who Choji had just picked up an earth scroll from the tent. Well, without Shikamaru on our team, things are going to be difficult. Choji said. Why can't they allow him to be part of the Chunin exams? Ino asked herself. Suddenly she got an answer from someone else. As I hear, he got promoted to Chunin after the exams, so there isn't much point to rejoining the same thing. Adam said, as he walked up to Ino and Choji. So you two are part of Team 10, am I correct? Adam asked. Yes, we are. Choji replied. Well, I'm sure that I'm that substitute member for you until the end of the second exams. Adam said. Okay. Welcome to Team 10 for a while. Choji greeted. Excuse me, but I haven't introduced myself properly yet. My name is Ino Yakamana. Part of the Yakamana clan. Ino informed, as she brushed her hair to her side nervously, as it brushed the platinum blonde hair to reveal her green pupilless eyes to see those chocolate brown eyes. I know, we met earlier today when we bumped into each other. Adam informed, which made Ino blush in embarrassment from that unscripted fiasco that happened earlier. Konohamaru, you are dead. Ino just laughed nervously, before saying, well, that was an accident. Anyway, welcome to Team 10 for now. After that, Team 10 with the substitute member walked away to where Team 10's gates are at. With Team 8, Kiba and Akamaru were growling for a fight, while Shino adjusted his glasses just in case they might fall off. Hinata usually was nervous, shy, and scared. But being a ninja, she narrowed her eyes in determination. Even though she was scared, she was brave enough to go. Why, Ying-san, are you there? Hinata asked in thought. I'm here, Hinata. And you can skip the formalities. Ying replied, before smiling at the young Hyuga girl. I'm sure you called me here for a reason. Ying said. Yes, Ying. I called you here because of the Chunin exams. Do you know who might hold the Heaven Scroll? Hinata asked. Ying looked down in question, before replying, unfortunately no. Me and Yang-kun are merely advisors for Hinata and Sasuke. However, we can advise you what might be the correct choice. Ying said. I'm your eyes and ears as well, Hinata, so I know why you asked. Seeing how your team possesses the Earth Scroll, you came to me for advice on how to get the Heaven Scroll. The best plan would be to wait and spy on those that have the scroll you're looking for. Be careful though, it's best that you do it now than later. Many of the other genins will result in killing as a last resort. Ying explained. Thank you, Ying-san. Hinata thanks. Ying smiled. Even though Hinata didn't have to address her with formalities, she still wanted to be nice towards her. Just like her father when he was young, no matter how hard I tried, he never skipped on the formalities. Until he changed that. Ying thought, with nothing but the memories of Hiyashi's change of character from the past. Team 7 were walking towards their gate after they had received the Earth Scroll, meaning they needed to get the Heaven Scroll. It would take time on decisions, and thinking. By then when they got to the gate they waited. Naruto stood in front of Sakura to make sure that she came behind him to make sure he would protect her. Sasuke was standing next to them. Yang, I need some advice. Which would be the best tactic, get the scroll, or set a campsite? Sasuke asked in thought. In my words, Sasuke, as soon as you find whoever carries a Heaven Scroll, the best thing to do is to acquire it. But if you can't find one, then you may as well set up a campsite. Either way, the decision is on you. Good luck. Yang replied. I just hope that we can get the Heaven Scroll early this time. Sasuke hoped. So do I, Sasuke. So do I. Yang said. Time skip. 20 minutes later. Everyone was set. All 150 genins were all set at their places and gates. Alright, maggots. In just about 2 minutes we'll be releasing the all of you. Remember, there are no breaks for you here. Meaning you'll have to hunt for your food. And make your own shelter. The familiar voice of Anko announced to the genins. Oh, and one more thing. Anko said. Try not to die, okay? Anko said. Beep. That was the sound of an alarm going on for all gates for all teams to go. Everyone, from Sand, Sound, and Konoha, teams all left the area they were at and into the forest of death. Once there, memories of those that had visited the deadly forest flowed in their minds, remembering the tall dark trees filled with all sorts of predators that could kill them. The many genins that were desperate trying to kill them, and the endless dark forest pooping up in their heads. All of it appeared in their heads from remembering the dangers they had once visited. Nothing in the forest of death but the tall thick endless high trees covering the sunlight to give a dark area of forest, hardly any light, be lucky if there were light at all. Branch to branch, many of the genins jumped from. It was quiet, and only the snap of a branch could break that quiet. Everything seemed fine. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke all stopped on the ground, landing on their feet, and circling each other. They all looked at each other with thinking eyes, coming up with a plan. So what's the plan? Naruto asked. I may have an idea. Sasuke said, as he looked to his side, to see light from the sun, but very small, and it was moving further and further away to a tree. Bang! Sasuke threw a kunai at the tree at the bottom where the light would go. We split up, we went our separate ways and found a heaven scroll. The kunai I threw is where in 4 hours we'll meet here, and by the time we meet the sunlight will be on the kunai. Sasuke explained. What happens if one of us is left behind? Naruto asked. Well, then we wait until the sun passes the kunai. If that person isn't here, we'll all together look for that person. Sasuke explained. And if we can't find a heaven scroll on time? Naruto asked. Then we still meet up here, and set up camp. It's the best choice we have. Sasuke replied. Okay. Naruto and Sakura said, before they disappeared, along with Sasuke. 3 members of Team 7 left the area, and into the deep forest of death. Where they may encounter dangers ahead of them. With Naruto jumping from branch to branch had a look of determination with his cerulean blue eyes, as he quickened his pace, and jumped faster. Smirking in determination, Naruto was sure that he and his team would pass this year's Chunin exams than last time. Well, it was more or less 6 months. With Sakura. Just like Naruto, Sakura jumped faster from branch to branch. Sakura was determined this time. She remembers what happened at the last Chunin exams. She was useless to her team, she didn't do much to help them, even when she was against Ino, she had a better chance than her. Knowing she has to protect Naruto and Sasuke, she has to stand up for herself. With Sasuke was jumping as fast as he could, listening to Yang's advice, he was looking for anyone who could have a heaven scroll. With Team 8, by a very large tree, the members, Kiba, Akamaru, Shino, and Hinata were all standing by, coming up with a plan to pass the second exams. Well, what do we do? Kiba asked, as he petted his small white dog inside of his collar of his gray jacket. The best plan of action, Kiba-san, would be to get the heaven scroll from someone who obtains one. Hinata replied. This reply surprised Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino, since the last exams she wasn't like this, and she addressed Kiba with a san, then a kun, like she did. So why does our little shy girl call me san, then kun, I say? Kiba teased with a smirk. Hinata blushed from his question before answering, we should find a heaven scroll soon. I agree with Hinata. Kiba. Shino agreed, while adjusting his glasses. With the amount of genins entering this year, I'm sure that we need to be as careful as we can be. We may as well go after the heaven scroll now than later, or we may have to wait another 6 months for the next exams. Shino explained. Both Hinata, Kiba, and Akamaru had to agree with Shino. With the amount of genins entering this year, they have no choice but to steal a heaven scroll from one of the teams. Just like a mission a Chunin or Junin may have to follow. Steal the enemy's information, and deliver it to the source, meaning in this case the tower. I'll send one of my insects to you once our timing is over. We'll meet at this spot, and if no one is here in time, we'll go look for them. Shino explained. How much time do we have? Kiba asked. 4 hours would be the best timing. Shino replied. With that said, the team went their separate ways and looked for the Heaven Scroll. They had no idea that another team would also do the same thing. With Sakura timeskip. 2 hours later. For the past 2 hours, Sakura had been searching the forest for anyone who had a Heaven Scroll. So far she's seen at least 4 or 5 teams go past her. But the reason they didn't interact with her was because they too possessed a Earth Scroll, while they needed a Heaven Scroll. Sakura was about tired. She only has 2 hours more before her and her team get back to their meeting point. Sakura was tired, so she landed on her feet to the ground, and rubbed her aching legs. This wasn't supposed to be this difficult to find a Heaven Scroll. Sakura said, before she looked up at the trees, and saw sunlight, which started to fade from its yellow bright to red-orange glow, meaning her time would soon be up. I hope Naruto-kun, and Sasuke, are doing better than me. Sakura said, with hope in her voice. She had no idea of a certain ninja hiding behind her on a tree with a transformation jutsu on. So this girl is what I hear as the teammate of the Namikaze kid. The figure said, with hiss in his voice. We'll have our revenge soon, Namikaze. He said, before disappearing. Sakura got up on her feet and looked around her. Maybe I should get going now. Better I use the time to search for the Heaven Scroll than sit here. Sakura said to herself. And then began jumping away. She jumped high on the trees and began going slowly to search for the scroll. Now if I were a Heaven Scroll, where would I be? Sakura said to herself. She jumped faster and faster to keep up with the other genins that might have a Heaven Scroll. She was so fast it would be difficult even for her to stop herself. But she saw something in her eyes. She saw something shiny, something with string, and before she knew it, rap. Small cuts were formed on her arms and she fell down to the ground. Crash. Immediately, Sakura wanted to get up and rubbed her aching arms, but it was impossible. She was stuck. She felt something pull on the string she was stuck in. Her arms were tangled in each other down to her waist, her legs completely now together tightened by the string, her head remained free, but that was all there was. Sakura began moving, kicking her legs up and down over and over again and again, but no matter how hard she tried, or how much she struggled, she couldn't free herself from the grip of the metal hard strings. Come on, let go. Sakura growled in struggle. She inhaled as much air as possible, and immediately used the energy from the air to break herself free, but she gave up when she couldn't do it. Great, I'm stuck, Sakura said to herself. And you're mine. The figure spying on her said, with a male voice. Sakura looked at him, but the shadows of the trees covered him, so she could only see his mouth. Let's have some fun, shall we? He said, as he grabbed a chunk of her pink hair, and pulled. Sakura let out a big scream that could be heard miles from her location with the figure. Ah, Naruto-kun. Sasuke. Help me, please. Sakura screamed. With Naruto standing on a branch, Naruto had his left hand on his hip, and using his right hand hovering above his eyes, while searching for somebody who has a Heaven Scroll. Come on, where is it? Naruto said to himself. Maybe Sakura-chan or Sasuke found it already. Naruto said. Naruto-kun, help me. Sakura's painful voice broke Naruto's heart as soon as he heard her. The voice was filled with pain that she's getting. Sakura-chan, Naruto said quietly. Sakura-chan, I'm coming, Naruto yelled, as he turned around and ran straight towards Sakura. With Sakura. That's it, just call for help, said the figure. Sakura winced in pain from the metal strings that started to go tighter on her. They sunk in her skin, and she started to feel it all as much as possible. She couldn't handle the pain anymore, it was getting too much, but she had to stay strong for Naruto. When Naruto-kun gets here, you're so dead. Sakura growled. Bang. Her face met with the dirt from the figure, as he put pressure on his right arm that held her head down. Sakura could feel the pressure, her face was aching, and her nose felt like it would snap in half. She could only open her right eye as her left eye was meeting with the dirt. Her eye narrowed at the figure with anger. She could only imagine what Naruto would do to him if he saw her in this state. Come one scream. The figure said. How about a fist? The figure turned around. Punch. His face met with Naruto's fist, and was pushed off of Sakura. Naruto grabbed Sakura bridal style and jumped away from the ninja. He grabbed a kunai, and cut Sakura out of the string. Snap. Naruto grabbed Sakura's shoulders, and lifted her up, and faced her towards him, and looked at her with concerned eyes. Sakura-chan, are you okay? Naruto asked, worry in his voice. Yes, I'm alright, Sakura replied, as she threw her arms around Naruto and hugged him. Blah, a namikaze hugging a girl, how sickening. The figure said, as he got back up to his feet, and spat on the ground in disgust. Naruto broke the hug, and looked at the figure, his eyes turned from relief that Sakura was fine now, to anger at the figure. You or lay your hands on Sakura-chan. Naruto growled, as Naruto and Sakura got back up from the ground to their feet. Is that anger I hear, or just a threat? The figure smirked. I'll show you what my threats are like, you bastard. Naruto growled. Sakura stood by Naruto's side, and grabbed her kunai from her pouch, and aimed it at the figure, her eyes filled with anger as well. What a wonderful sight, a namikaze and a girl fighting together against me, it'll be fun. The figure said, with excitement in his voice. Stay away from Sakura-chan. Naruto growled. Done, I'm only after one person, and that's you, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. The figure hissed at Naruto's last name. Sakura looked at Naruto with a confused look. Naruto-kun, do you know him? Sakura asked, in confusion. No, I never seen him before. Naruto replied with confusion. The figure smirked, and said, where are my manners, of course we never seen each other. He then started to walk towards Naruto and Sakura. However, our clans had. As soon as he finished his sentence, his revealed his face to Naruto and Sakura. The figure, judging by the voice, was a male, and obviously was. Who looked to be 16, with a bit of tannish skin. His eyes were pupilless purple colored, and his black headband on his forehead revealed him to be a sound ninja. He had a black t-shirt on, with a strange symbol. The symbol had 4 circles in each other from big to small, and had a plus sign on the largest circle going across the other circles, and in the center of the circles and plus sign was 2 eyes similar to his on it. He wore gray trousers, and blue ninja shoes. His hair was as long to his lower back, and was black, and perfectly straightened. Clans? Naruto asked. You don't know, and even though you're a namikaze. The sound genin replied. Let me explain. He began. About 200 years ago. Our clans, the Namikaze clan, and the Kesho clan. Note, Kesho mean crystal in Japanese terms, both fought in the Bloodline Wars, a war that far exceeds that of all 3 shinobi wars. This was mainly due to the battle with countless bloodlines. But there are only 2 sides, these 2 sides had different beliefs to use their bloodlines for. For example, there are those clans who uses their bloodline for power, and those that uses it for the safety of their village. We the Keshos were part of those that would use it to bring power, and the Namikazes are those that used it to protect their village. He explained. 200 years ago we the Keshos were fighting against the Namikazes due to the power both clans hold, in other words we were equal in strength. He continued. However, he said, there are 2 clans against each other during the wars, 2 sides, 2 clans, and 1 winner, and 1 loser. He said, our clan fought against yours. It took 20 years of fighting before it was all concluded. You see, with the battle going on we were begging to be outnumbered by your clan. It wasn't by then that you used tactics to drain our supplies, and began placing spies on us. Therefore the battle was chosen at the middle of the desert in sand, where it would be the place where the fighting ends. Your clan the Namikaze defeated mine the Kesho and dispersed us, he explained, which made Naruto and Sakura gaps at the last part of his sentence. After you won the battle, the clan was a wreck, many of our supplies gone, we turned on each other, starting to kill one another, that was before some of us left and gone our separate way. Because of you we were embarrassed, known as the pathetic clan. He said. But now, today our name will be restored. You see, just like us the Namikaze clan was begging to fade. That's due to the other village shunting you down for your bloodline until they separated, but now there's one remaining, and that's you. My clan is scattered to the winds, and once I kill the last Namikaze we'll be known as the Great Clan, and our revenge will be served. He said. So you attack Sakura-chan just so you could get revenge? Naruto demanded in anger. A life of a mere kunyuchi doesn't concern me. He said. For I am Kageyaki Kesho. Note. Kageyaki means shine in Japanese terms, heir of the Kesho clan, and killer of the Namikaze clan. The now unknown Sound Genin Kageyaki said. I suggest you go all out while you can. This will be the battle that our clans have been waiting for, and I won't go easy, so just put up your bloodline. Kageyaki said. Ah, Naruto gasped. Well, the thing is, I don't know how you activate it. Naruto said, in embarrassment. Are you telling me you're a Namikaze who doesn't know how to use his own bloodline? Kageyaki asked in shock. Yes. Naruto replied, embarrassingly. Well then, I may have a way to change things. Kageyaki said, as he did a quick series of hand seals with his right hand, which he raised it to the level of his head. As soon as he finished, he pulled his hand to his face with his eyes closed. Earth style. Earth clones. Kageyaki said, before opening his eyes. Surrounding Naruto and Sakura were bubbles of earth coming up around them from the ground. They started to take shape of a figure, and then started to gain color, and then took on the full form of Kageyaki. Shadow clones. I know how to deal with them. Naruto said with a smirk. Sakura-chan, stay behind me. Naruto said, and Sakura nodded, while she stepped behind Naruto with a kunai in her hand. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Naruto yelled. Poof. And immediately, shadow clones of Naruto popped around him, at least 20 clones against 20 others. So, you mastered the art of shadow clones. This will be an interesting fight. Kageyaki said. Alright, let's go. Naruto yelled. Kill them. Kageyaki said. Ourjit. All the Naruto clones yelled, as they jumped up, and formed a blue sphere of chakra known as the Rasengan, and flew it straight towards the Kageyaki clones. Rasengan. All the Naruto clones yelled. By then, as the Rasengans hit, all the Naruto clones' eyes, and Sakura eyes widened in complete shock, as many of their arms went through the Kageyaki clones. What the hell? What is this? What happened? All the Naruto clones said, as many struggled to pull their arms out, and many trying to free themselves, and many trying to get away from the Kageyaki clones. By interesting, I should have said stupid. Kageyaki commented. Don't you get it? They are Earth clones. Kageyaki said. Let me explain. You see, your shadow clones, just like my clones, are solid compared with the normal clones used as decoys against enemy ninjas. However, yours are made of chakra, which is why they just came up around you, since you're releasing chakra from your body into the air in order to create these clones. My chakra, however, is transported through the earth below my feet to form myself in a earth version of me. When an enemy strikes a shadow clone, they are dispersed because the enemy is dispersing the chakra within them. My chakra is infused in the earth, so basically you'll have to attack as many times of my earth clones in order to disperse the chakra, form them. Not that it matters, my clones are much stronger than yours. Kageyaki explained. Hey, then I'll just have to punch them all just as many times as I have to, or? Naruto said. Or what? Kageyaki asked. Or I'll have to fight the real one. Naruto replied. By then he pulled his arm free from a Kageyaki clone, and immediately charged after the real Kageyaki. Kageyaki looked unimpressed by Naruto, and just looked at him as he was charging towards him with his fists pulled back. How hopeless it is to fight against me, Kageyaki said, as Naruto punched him. However, he took a step to his right side before Naruto could punch him, and immediately took his right palm out in an instant and smashed it towards Naruto's face. Bang! Naruto was struck on the face. Naruto forced his head towards Kageyaki, who gasped before Naruto grabbed him by the collar, and punched him in the stomach, forcing his air to come out. Kageyaki leaned down as he grabbed his stomach, and looked up at Naruto, who kicked Kageyaki at the chin, forcing his whole body to go straight up. Naruto got down on the ground, and slipped his right leg towards Kageyaki's legs and forced him to fall towards the ground. Bang! Kageyaki, back first on the ground, looked down at him towards Naruto, who quickly formed a Rasengan. Rasengan! Naruto yelled. Boom! He hit Kageyaki with the Rasengan, and was consumed by smoke. The smoke cleared, only for Naruto to see that his Rasengan was connected to the ground rather than with Kageyaki. You should pay more attention, Kageyaki advised, as he appeared behind Naruto. And with his right hand, he put his left hand over it, and then removed it, revealing an air blue chakra-made surface on his hand. Wind palm, he yelled, as he smashed his palm at Naruto's back. Bang! Naruto just took a few steps forward, and looked back at Kageyaki. The palm didn't seem to affect Hai at all. That was before. Ah! Naruto shouted in pain, as he leaned forward while holding his stomach in pain, as it began to rumble, and soon, his whole body moved like he had a seizure, and fell to his knees on the ground. Naruto-kun! Sakura yelled in worry. She turned with angry eyes at Kageyaki. What did you do to him? Sakura demanded. It's quite simple actually, Kageyaki said. You see, my wind palm uses the air around it to gather chakra, and therefore collecting it in my palm. When I struck him, all the wind from my palm was transferred inside of him. That's due to the skin being thick and his blood streams on his spine in his back. Once I struck him, his blood pressure increased from his spine, therefore a shock wave formed by the strike was spread around his body, and forcing all his organs within him to be caught in the blast range, and the results is what you see here. Kageyaki explained, which made Sakura look at Naruto, who started to spit blood out of his mouth. He's lucky my move wasn't very powerful, otherwise his organs would have blown up like a balloon. Kageyaki said, it's a shame though, if it was strong enough I'd kill you right here and now, though this is the last battle the Kesho and Namikaze will have, so I should save the moment. Kageyaki said. Bastard! Naruto growled. Attack! Naruto yelled, as he and the clones charged after Kageyaki after breaking themselves free from the clones. Now then, Naruto yelled. Even as you outnumber me, you don't really expect. Punch! 2 Naruto clones came from the earth underneath Kageyaki, and punched him in the chin, sending him flying in the air. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze Barrage! All the Naruto clones yelled. At first 3 clones punched Kageyaki in the face, then 3 again but from the opposite side. After that all the other 14 clones came at a frenzy at him and punched him in the face. Uzu! 3 Naruto clones kicked him from the side. 3 Naruto clones kicked him from the other side. Ki! And 3 more kicked him from under his chin. 2 clones elbowed him from the back down to the ground, causing him to fall down at high speed. 2 more clones kneed him in the face. 7 clones came and kicked him high in the air. Naruto Barrage! And again all the clones kept punching him at high speed in a frenzy high in the air. Boom! Kageyaki fell down towards the ground, and the area around him was covered in smoke. Quietly, he clapped in the air slowly in amusement while getting up. I'll admit that was a nice show you put up, he said, as he stopped clapping, and brushed the dirt off of his clothes, and looked at Naruto and Sakura, who both looked shocked at his appearance. Kageyaki had seemed to be okay, which shocked them, since that move should have at least given him more of a beating. So you combined both clans' names, and made them into moves. Very smart indeed. However, you seem to use a lot of chakra in the attack. Kajayaki said, which was correct. Sakura looked at Naruto, and saw he was breathing heavily. It did take a lot of his own chakra in order to produce such an attack. So what? If I can't use mine, I'll have to use the other chakra. Naruto smirked. Other chakra, so you more than two? Kajayaki asked, with a raised eyebrow. You bet. Naruto replied. But for Sakura, she wasn't as determined as Naruto was. She exactly knew what the problem was. No, he can't. Jiraiya-sama already sealed the Kyuubi's chakra away. All he has to do is use his own chakra, which he doesn't have much left. Sakura thought, as she looked at Kajayaki, with an unamused look. If this keeps up, we may die. Sakura thought. Let's try this again, Kajayaki said, as he pulled his right palm away, and formed another wind palm. Sure thing, Naruto said, as he pulled his right arm away, and formed another Rasengan. Ah! Both genins yelled, as they charged straight towards each other, and clashed with their jutsus. Wind palm, Rasengan. Both yelled at the same time. Boom! Smoke cleared the area once more, as the fight continued. With Sasuke. Back with Sasuke, who was still searching for a heaven scroll, still hasn't made any progress. No heaven scroll still, Sasuke said to himself, as stopped by a branch, and held his weight on the tree to his left. Sasuke looked around, and saw down on the ground something shiny and narrowed his eyes to see what he was looking for, a heaven scroll. Sasuke smirked, and jumped down towards it. With Hinata. After for the past 2 hours Hinata had finally found a scroll at the ground on the dirt. And smirked happily that she finally found the heaven scroll for her team. I'll get that it, Hinata said, as she jumped down towards the ground. With Hinata and Sasuke. Unknown to both Sasuke and Hinata, the heaven scroll they saw was the same one. And as they dropped down, Sasuke reached for the scroll with his right hand, and Hinata did the same with her right hand. However, Sasuke was about inches from the heaven scroll, so was Hinata, and both soon saw their fingertips, and looked up to see each other, and immediately, their eyes widened in shock. Hinata-chan. Sasuke thought. Sasuke-kun. Hinata thought. For moments both genins haven't said a word, but pulled their hands back away from the heaven scroll and took a few steps away while looking at each other. And it had seemed as though they were battling their heads to figure out what to do in different minds. Yang, what do I do? Sasuke asked. I'm sorry Sasuke, but in a situation like this only you can make the choice. In this part here you either give the heaven scroll or take the heaven scroll. Yang advised. Ying-san, what do I do? Hinata asked. I'm sorry Hinata, but these circumstances are your choice not mine. You either keep the heaven scroll or give the heaven scroll. Ying advised. It seemed as though even their spirits couldn't help, but they had to agree with them. In an early attempt, it would be wise to take the heaven scroll, however, just because it'll make it easy doesn't mean it'll be alright, seeing how they might take one lover's way to completing the second part of the exams away, however they would be failing their team, which wasn't also right. Sasuke took a few steps towards the heaven scroll, and picked it up. Once he got the heaven scroll, he walked over to Hinata and gave it to her, however it remained in his hand. Sasuke-kun. Hinata said quietly. Hinata-chan, this scroll belongs to you more than it does for me. Sasuke said. No Sasuke-kun. It's more important for you than for me. Hinata said. No Hinata-chan, it's more important for you than for me. Sasuke said. I'm sure you went through a lot of trouble to get the heaven scroll from a team. Sasuke said. No Sasuke-kun. Hinata said. I didn't do anything, I know you must have went through a lot of trouble getting the heaven scroll from a team. Hinata said. What are you talking about? I never intersected a team, I found it lying on the ground. Sasuke informed. So, if you didn't get from a team, and I didn't, and we both found it on the ground. Hinata tried to explain, but couldn't find the words. And it was at that moment, Sasuke's and Hinata's eyes widened, and realized that the whole time, the heaven scroll must have been planted for them. In an instant, Sasuke pushed Hinata slowly to the ground, and both genins were kneeling down. We must have been tricked, Sasuke said. If neither of us got the heaven scroll from a team, then it must have been planted here. Sasuke explained. With many teams out here, the heaven scroll could lure those who has a earth scroll, seeing how this is a heaven scroll, and they need the other to pass the exams. Hinata added. But it's very risky that they will put away their heaven scroll just to get a earth scroll, so it may not be the real one you're holding right now. Hinata explained. I know, Sasuke admitted, his voice quiet for a while. But if so, it isn't the real heaven scroll, then if one of us reads it, we will not fall under the sleep jutsu that's been planted in them. Sasuke informed. How do you know a jutsu such as that is in the heaven scroll, Sasuke-kun? Hinata asked. Well, last time Hinata-chan Kabuto informed me and my team about this when he saw some genins reading the scroll as well. Sasuke replied. Not to mention it lasts as long as the exams do, and I'm not so sure we can wake each other up if we read it. Sasuke said. Then what do we do? Hinata asked. Well, they're not much and we may as well forget about reading it. Sasuke replied. It's better to be safe than. Sasuke was cut off. When he looked at Hinata in the eyes, however, he looked by her shoulder to see something shining. Watch out! Sasuke yelled, as he grabbed Hinata, and pulled her towards him to the ground. Once he and her were on the ground, he saw a kunai pass them at the level their heads were at. Thwack! The kunai hit a tree. Sasuke and Hinata got up, and looked at each other, from the embarrassing save Sasuke had done to Hinata, but had to focus. Sasuke and Hinata looked at where the kunai came from. Hey. Sasuke and Hinata heard an evil chuckle. Looks like we got a winner. The mysterious voice said. As far as Sasuke and Hinata could tell, that voice was a male. And coming from the shadows of the trees, looked to be a 16-year-old boy, with tan skin, and wore a sound headband over his forehead, and his black eyes narrowed like that of an animal looking at its prey. His hair was spiky at the back, but hardly seeable since his headband was like a bandana. He had a evil smirk. His clothes consisted of a pale dark t-shirt with a pale brown thin vest over it, black gloves revealing his fingertips and his thumbs, gray-white trousers stained with blood of that of his enemies, and blue ninja shoes. Agreed, said another voice coming from behind Sasuke and Hinata, as they turned around to see who it is. It was also a boy, who looked 16, but had pale skin, and yellow eyes that represented that of a bat's, and spiky brown hair that competed with that of Kakashi's silver spiky white hair, and wore a sound headband over his forehead as well. His outfit consisted of wearing a dark jumper, with a long wide thin gray scarf going around his neck, and down to his lower back with both ends. He wore gray trousers, with dark and light gray patterns that of a camouflage soldier, and blue ninja shoes. And there's a nice cutie as well. This time it was a female voice that said that, as Sasuke and Hinata turned to their right to see someone. Judging by the voice, it was a girl, who looked 16 as well. She had fair skin, blue cerulean eyes, and dark long hair that reached the end of her lower back, and wore a sound headband over her forehead. Her outfit consisted of a tank shirt green-brown, tight, and showing a lot of her curves, and cup-sized cleavage breasts, and wore 2 arm bands on her arms, similar patterns those to the pale guy, gray, dark, light, to that of a camouflage soldier, and gray trousers, with the same patterns, gray, dark, light, to that of a camouflage soldier, and blue ninja shoes. It was obvious, judging from all of their headbands, they were sound nins, or genins. Both Sasuke and Hinata were back to back at each other, and grabbed their kunais, and held them in their hands, and circle each other, keeping an eye at the 3 sound genins. As they started to move closer. It's polite to introduce yourself, Sasuke said, with narrowed eyes. Agreed. Hinata agreed, with narrowed eyes. Excuse our behavior. The Tan Genin said. My name is Saraisu. Note. Saraisu means slice in Japanese term. Garindo. Note. Garindo means grind in Japanese term. The Genin no known as Saraisu said. And this is Kage. Note. Kage means shadow in Japanese term. Kato. Note. Kato means cut in Japanese term. Saraisu said, as he pointed at the pale Genin. And her name is Hana. Note. Hana means flower in Japanese term. Doku. Note. Doku means poison in Japanese term. Saraisu said, as pointed at the female Genin with fair skin. And we are Team 14 of Sound. Saraisu said. And yes, we have planted that the heaven scroll here for you, seeing how we needed the earth scroll, and you have one. Kage said. And now we have one thanks to you. Saraisu said. Sasuke smirked. I don't really think so. Sasuke said. To be honest, there's one thing you haven't thought through. You see, my team does possess the heaven scroll, but there are 3 of us, and only one the heaven scroll, which means only one of us has it. It could be me, or my teammates. Sasuke explained. Do you really think we're stupid? Hana said. Yes. Many villages shinobi all have 3 people in one team once a team has been formed, and of course as the oldest trick in the book would suggest only one of you would have it, however that means you know who has it, and you know where they are, so just spill out the information which of you have it. Hana explained. Hinata-chan, I want you to run to your team now. Sasuke whispered to Hinata, as he drawn his kunai a little higher. However, unknown to him, Saraisu was listening to the whole thing. So the girl isn't in your team after all. Saraisu said. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock, as if Saraisu had heard of what he said to Hinata. How did you know? Sasuke asked in shock. Saraisu smirked. In achievement. You don't know, do you? Well, let me explain. For what I can hear, I have these. Saraisu replied, as he took something out of his pocket. Looking closer, Sasuke and Hinata could both see that what he was doling seemed to be communicators every ninja uses in a mission, but they were smaller, and had more of a net screen sphere around them that had a perfect for to all ears. What are those? Sasuke and Hinata asked, at the same time. These are what we call prey hearers. Saraisu replied. Let me explain. Saraisu started. These prey hearers is what we can use to duplicate that of an animal's hearing. Like the Inuzuka clan with their increased strength, nose, and hearing due to their chakra reserves mutated to be different from others. Therefore we invented a new device which allows us to hear just as much as an animal's does, and this is due to the increased chakra reserve we had to create in order to put into hear you. The chakra reserves in them collects any word spoken by anyone at a radius of 2 kilometers. That's because chakra is everyone's life reserve. No matter what way you look at it, we inhale chakra, exhale chakra all the time. That's because we breath in the chakra in the air, and exhale it back. With the prey hearers, we can collect the chakra that has been exhaled by those around it, and we can also transfer the frequency of the exhale into any language we can speak, and understand what we are saying. To give a small recap, you inhale chakra, and exhale chakra from the air, and we can transmit the frequency of that into what we can hear from, in the prey hearer. Saraisu explained. In other words, these are a type of device that duplicates the skill of hearing form the Inuzuka clan. Sasuke said. In those words, yes, we can. Saraisu said. Enough talk, let's fight. Hana said, as she disappeared without a trace. Both Sasuke and Hinata looked everywhere around them to find her, but couldn't. They swayed their heads, left and right, left and right, left and right, and checked everywhere to see where she went. Until suddenly she appeared between their backs. They both turned around to see her smirking, before drawing out her kunais, and holding them in each hand, and attempting to swipe them in the back. Cling. But Sasuke and Hinata both blocked the kunai's strike with their kunais, and jumped a few meters away from her. How is she so fast? This can't be Shushin, can it? No. It takes large amounts of chakra in order to perform such a technique, but so far I don't sense she's using much, and she seemed faster than normal person. Sasuke thought, but seen on Hana's feet something made of metal under her foot, so did Hinata. The ninja shoes we use are made of rubber. It's because so we can transfer our chakra down to our feet during missions, and designed in a way that our chakra isn't disturbed by the shoe. However, it seemed as though her shoe somehow manipulated her chakra in order to expand it more, thus giving her a faster speed. Hinata thought, and by the time Hana moved her feet again, Hinata had a better look at the bottom of her shoes. What it looked like was rectangular shape, but with curved ends like an oval. It took at least the center of the shoes, the size of a stick, and had a few holes. On the top and bottom the holes were large, while below them there were 6 holes, 3 on top of 3 next to the bigger holes, making it a total of 12 small holes, and a large hole in the center of the device, and there was air shooting out of it. Hana looked at Hinata and smirked. Like it. It's a new invention we created called the sound reserve. We call it that because it helps manipulate the small amounts of chakra we give off in our feet to expand at a great rate to the point at which we can use in order to conduct great speeds with our feet. They are really hard to come by, you know. Hana explained. Kage took out from his pockets a strange device. It was a handle for a katana, but that was all there was, until a thin metal rod came out of it as soon as he pushed a button. Without any warning, he zoomed into Hinata, and swung his strange katana at her. That was before Sasuke stepped in and carried her away, but not without the strange katana cutting a few pieces of his, and her, hair. Sasuke-kun, are you okay? Hinata asked in concern, as she realized Sasuke carried her bridal style, before letting her back to her feet. Yes, Hinata-chan, I'm okay. Sasuke replied, with a warm smile, before becoming serious and looking back at Kage. What is that? Sasuke asked. This. Kage replied. This is what we like to call more of a wind katana, another invention designed by our scientists. This katana may look weak, and it doesn't pose much of a threat to anyone, however it is. That's mainly due to the rod made out of a certain metal we can use to transfer our chakra into. Using our wind chakra we can create a sort of katana blade, let's say, and use it as a sword, and thus making it very light so there isn't much power used for the swing. Kage explained. For instance, Kage said, and his wind katana started to glow blue with chakra, and later on a shape of a wind mini tornado formed a blade of a katana. Now then, Saraisu said, attack. Saraisu shouted, and immediately, Saraisu, Kage, and Hana all charged in at Sasuke, and Hinata, as they both drawn their kunais and prepared for the attack. With Naruto, Sakura, and Kageyaki. Huff, 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 huff. Naruto panted heavily, his orange clothes now filled with dirt, along with his face. At the right cheek of Naruto he had a small scratch from a kunai on it, and his eyes were narrowed down to show his exhaustion, as he looked at Kageyaki, who seemed to be perfectly normal. During the whole fight they both were at it. Naruto basically used everything he had. All of his 20 shadow clones were all down on the ground unconscious, as the Kageyaki Earth clones looked at Naruto with faces of pity. Sakura was behind Naruto, who had eyes of worry for him, sensing that his chakra was very low at the moment. The only thing that could help them is the chakra of that from the Kyuubi, which for some reason for Naruto hasn't been helpful at this point, with only Sakura knowing the answer, as Kageyaki continued to look at Naruto. I'll admit you have great strength. I mean, no one besides from the 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze. Originally your father, I hear, and his sensei, Jiraiya the Toad Sannin, are the only two to ever known to use the Rasengan, and it's very rare for anyone to master it. In fact, hundreds attempted. Ninja with great chakra control and more experience tried, but all failed, besides from you, who basically hasn't even tried to use more than at least 2 jutsus. The Shadow Clone Jutsu and the Rasengan are powerful, but after a few short move I found put that those are the only ones you know of. Every ninja that starts out as a genin know at least 5 basic jutsus taught by the academies, and not just that, but after at least a month as a team the average genin is expected to learn at least 3 more. making that a total of 8 jutsus. So may I ask, why do you use only? Kageyaki asked, his eyes filled with unemotional, while his face with nothing but pity for Naruto. I don't. I guess they never taught me any of the other jutsus. Naruto replied, struggling to stand up. So in other words, many of the senseis refused to teach you. Kageyaki guessed. And I'm more surprised to know that even for an Uzumaki you know nothing about any wind jutsus. Kageyaki said. What do you mean? Naruto asked, in shock. What I mean is that you're also from the Uzumaki clan. Kageyaki replied. Let me explain. Kageyaki started. You see, the Uzumaki clan were also part of the bloodline wars, despite they had no bloodline, but they were excellent at 2 things. 1. They were masters of seals, seals that made anybody's hard-worked seals look like that made by a baby. 2. They are the greatest wind users. No one has seen the arts of wind as the Uzumakis do, with their arts of wind. Kageyaki explained. I'm getting bored. I fought you because you're mainly from the Namikaze clan, and yet I didn't even release my bloodline, and I want to make sure the last battle between the Kesho and Namikaze clan is known through history as a great battle fought, not that of a fool's play. Kageyaki said, with boredom. If you don't release your bloodline, then I will force it to be released the bloodline. Kageyaki said, this time his voice filled with irritation. He looked at Sakura, who gasped, before she was grabbed by 2 Kageyaki Earth clones. Ah! Sakura yelled, in fear. Sakura-chan. Naruto yelled, in concern. If you do not release your bloodline in the next 20 minutes. Kageyaki said, I will kill her. Kageyaki said, his voice filled with threat, and it was not to be taken lightly. The right arm of the Kageyaki Earth clone on the right formed a giant spike, while the same happened on the left arm of the left Kageyaki Earth clone. Naruto turned towards Kageyaki, and his eyes filled with rage. Let her go. Naruto demanded. Only if you beat me. Kageyaki said. Naruto immediately charged towards Kageyaki. Poof. All the shadow clones disappeared, and Naruto ran straight towards Kageyaki. The Kageyaki sighed in pity, before looking at the remaining 18 Earth clones of himself. If that's what it takes to save Sakura-chan, then I'll have to fight. Naruto yelled. Kill him. Kageyaki ordered, and immediately, Naruto was stopped by a Kageyaki Earth clone. Damn, I don't have enough chakra to create more clones. Naruto thought. Instead of creating more, he decided to create a Rasengan, and charged towards Kageyaki. First, 5 Kageyaki Earth clones went in front of Naruto and blocked his target, therefore Naruto had to jump over the Kageyaki Earth clones in order to reach the real one. By the stage in the air he was close to Kageyaki, a Kageyaki Earth clone blocked the Rasengan with its own body. Rasengan! Naruto yelled, as he pushed his Rasengan at Kageyaki, before the Kageyaki Earth clone stepped in the way. Boom! The Kageyaki Earth clone blew up, and all the dirt was flown everywhere, dust covered the area. Once it was cleared, Naruto was going to punch Kageyaki, which wasn't really far from him. By the stage Naruto's punch was at least a centimeter from Kageyaki's face. It was stopped when Kageyaki grabbed his arm, and threw him away. Boom! Naruto was sent going towards a tree. It amazed Naruto and Sakura that Kageyaki could easily send Naruto flying just by grabbing him and sending him away at a very fast speed. The remaining Kageyaki Earth clones all jumped down on Naruto, at least 17 now. Naruto saw this and looked up to see them all with spikes on their arms similar to those of what the ones that grabbed Sakura had. Naruto quickly acted, and jumped past the Kageyaki Earth clones. By then he created another Rasengan and used it to hit the Kageyaki Earth clones. Since it was one, he had to create many more, therefore destroying all the rest of the Kageyaki Earth clones. Rasengan. Boom. 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 Every time Naruto shouted the same thing, and hit every Kageyaki Earth clone from behind, therefore he didn't take any damage at all. Kageyaki looked at Naruto, who turned to give a smirk of achievement. It was by then Kageyaki gave Naruto a small growl of anger, and turned towards the other two Kageyaki Earth clones that were holding Sakura. You're useless, now go. Kageyaki ordered, in his unemotional tone, and the Kageyaki Earth clones nodded, and crumbled away. Sakura rubbed her arms from the aching pressure put into he by the Kageyaki Earth clones. Seems as though I may have to put things into more of a pressing matter then, don't I? Kageyaki said. He put his hands together to make a hand sign, and closed his eyes. Murasaki no. Kageyaki yelled, as he opened his eyes suddenly, and revealed from his purple eyes, to now a darker purple color, with a bit of a black lining around it, and a blue cerulean pupil coming from his eyes. Note, Murasaki no means purple in Japanese term. This the bloodline of the Kesho clan. Kageyaki said. Byakugan, said to be the Hyuga's bloodline, AI that can see through people, objects, seals, trees, rocks, water chakra systems, and clothes, and to be the bloodline that sees through others. Kageyaki explained. Sharingan, said to be the Uchiha's bloodline, AI that can be used to master illusions like genjutsu, and copies others' jutsus for a limited time. Kageyaki explained. Kopi, said to be the Namikaze's bloodline, AI that can copy bloodlines from others, as well as jutsus, and saves them for an unlimited time. Kageyaki explained. And finally my clan, the Kesho clan, using the eye Murasaki no, this eye is much different from the other three clans, and that is that we can generate, and call upon crystals. Kageyaki explained. Crystals? Naruto, and Sakura, asked, at the same time. Yes. Kageyaki replied. A mutation occurred a long time ago when the first Keshos were born from the Kesho clan. It all happened when the Ninbi, the two-tailed beast demon, chakra was fused with that of the necklace they carried made of crystals were fused into their eyes. For weeks they were blind until they finally could see again, and when that happened they developed a strange power using the power from their eyes to coat them in a sort of crystal magnet, which can help to call upon crystals, and due to the earth chakra they had they also could create crystal where it could take hundreds of years and could easily be created in less than a minute. Kageyaki explained. For example, Kageyaki said, as he lifted his hand up, and pointed towards Sakura. Crystal art. Crystal spikes. Kageyaki said, as purple crystals underground came up, and then went down towards Sakura. Ah! Sakura screamed, before a few of the crystals pinned her clothes down to the ground along with her. Luckily she remained unharmed. Sakura-chan. Naruto yelled in worry. Therefore the name Kesho meaning crystal is how we are called. Kageyaki explained. Bastard. Naruto yelled, in anger, as he charged towards Kageyaki. Rasengan. Naruto yelled, as he formed a Rasengan on his right hand, and thrusted towards Kageyaki. Crystal art. Crystal barrier wall. Kageyaki said. Boom. A wall of crystals that reached 10 meters in the air rise up from the ground and blocked the Rasengan. Boom. The Rasengan clashed with the wall, and didn't make a dent in the wall. Kageyaki, who could see through the crystals like a window, looked at Naruto with an unemotional look. Now you understand. Our crystals are powerful enough to stop even an explosion. There is no way for you to get to me while I have my Murasaki no on. Kageyaki informed. Crystal art. Crystal spike barrage. Kageyaki said, as he pointed his finger towards Naruto, and spikes from the crystal wall were formed, and charged straight towards Naruto. Naruto had little time to act with the crystals, so he dodged them and ran away as fast as he could, but the crystals were faster, and some caught up to Naruto in front of him, and charged straight towards him. Naruto stopped and looked back to see the other crystals close to him, and looked back at the crystals in front of him, and jumped high in the air, where the crystals clashed against each other. Boom. The crystals crashed at each other. Naruto landed back on his feet, and looked back at Kageyaki, who dropped the wall, and looked at Naruto with his usual unamused eyes. Naruto growled, before charging towards Kageyaki again. This time he took out his right fist, and decided to punch him, despite that Kageyaki was much stronger than him. "No, eat this!" Naruto yelled, as he punched Kageyaki face, but that was dodged, and he grabbed Naruto's wrist, and looked at him with unemotional eyes. "So, this is how it is then, you're low on chakra to the point at which you cannot use any jutsus whatsoever, and now you have to rely on your own strength, not a good choice," Kageyaki said, before punching Naruto in the stomach, forcing most of his air out. "Naruto-kun," Sakura yelled, in worry. "You have one last hope left, and that is to activate your bloodline," Kageyaki said, "or she dies," Kageyaki said, and a few of the crystal spikes were hovering above Sakura. She was unable to move because of the spikes holding her down, and looked up to see the crystals. "No, please don't," Naruto yelled in worry. He saw as the spikes got closer, and closer to Sakura each second, and growled in frustration. Naruto pulled his wrist back, and did a series of hand seals. "Come on," Naruto thought, frustratingly. He concentrated as much chakra into his eyes as possible. "Alright, you wanted me to activate my bloodline, here we go," Naruto said, and he closed his eyes, and opened them again. "Kopi," Naruto yelled, and what appeared were no longer his cerulean blue eyes, but a different type. His eyes were now different, the white outside are now yellow, and his color changed to orange, and his pupils glowed white, and to reveal the Kopi bloodline. Naruto turned to see Kageyaki, who had a small smirk on him. Finally seeing the Kopi bloodline in action, Sakura had to admit Naruto looked different with those eyes that made Naruto look much stronger. "Finally, you've activated your Kopi bloodline, and now you can use it to fight against me," Kageyaki said. "A battle between two clans with bloodlines would be meaningless if they both didn't activate their bloodline. Now let's see," Kageyaki said. "Alright," Naruto yelled. "Copy," Naruto yelled, but his eyes went wide open, and gripped his own head, and felt an intense pain in his eyes, and fell to his knees while screaming. "Ah!" Naruto yelled, while holding his head. "Naruto-kun," Sakura yelled, in worry. "I knew it, you used your bloodline before, so when you activated it it's taking too much chakra," Kageyaki said. "I have enough of this." Kageyaki dropped his usual unemotional tone and face and grew irritated. "I didn't come all the way here just so I could fight, but to also avenge my clan, the Kesho clan, and take the head of the last Namikaze. It's time to die." With that said, Kageyaki walked towards Naruto, who opened his eyes to reveal his blue cerulean eyes, and fall down to the ground. "Stop it, leave Naruto-kun alone," Sakura yelled. "Trust me, I am doing him a favor," Kageyaki said. Sakura struggled to get out of the grip of the crystals, and try to get to Naruto before Kageyaki could. "Leave my boyfriend alone," Sakura yelled. "Alone, alone, 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 alone." Sakura's voice echoed throughout the forest. Kageyaki stopped, and looked back at her. "That means you love," Kageyaki said. "Leave my girlfriend alone," Naruto said. Kageyaki, in an instant, was on top of Sakura, and pushed her head down to the ground. "Then, you're also the enemy of the Kesho clan," Kageyaki said. "What?" Naruto exclaimed, in shock. "Yes, you see, if she loves you there's a chance you might bring the clan back," Kageyaki said. "And to make your pain worse, I'll kill her instead," Kageyaki said, as he grabbed a kunai, and pointed it at Sakura's neck. "Die," Kageyaki said, as he pushed the kunai against her neck. "No," Naruto yelled, and got up. "You will not touch her," Naruto yelled, with a demonic tone, and immediately, Naruto was surrounded by red chakra. His eyes that were blue cerulean turned to red fox eyes. And his arms formed small claws that represented that of a fox, and 9 tails were created behind Naruto, and his teeth began to grow like that of a fox. Naruto smirked evilly at Kageyaki, who was stunned with Sakura at the sight. He immediately got up, and looked at Naruto with wide eyes. "There's something I forgot to mention," Kageyaki said, while his body shivered in fear. "There's a third thing the Uzumaki clan is famous for," Kageyaki said. "Third, they are famous for the 9-tailed beast, the Kyuubi, passed down to every heir of the Uzumaki clan, and what we are witnessing here is the heir to the Uzumaki clan," Kageyaki said, and Sakura's eyes widened as well with worry. "Now die!" Kyuubi Naruto yelled, as he charged towards Kageyaki. In the Forest of Death, at another part, we see 4 figures jumping from tree to tree at high speed. These figures were taller than Genins, and looked more than Chunin. They were mainly Junin with the exception of a Chunin nearly Junin level joining the operation sent by Tsunade, mainly due to what reports said in the past. Not too long ago, many Genins who left the forest from many things such as hunger, injury, fear, and poison, had reported that they had encountered a strange large chakra signature, with the Junins asking why. The only answer they could give was that it felt demonic. This led Tsunade and many Junin to believe that it was Naruto's doing. It was the only explanation since Naruto was the only Jinchuriki in the Chunin exams this year. That's right, Gaara wasn't in the Chunin exams. Why? Simple. Gaara, the 1-tailed Jinchuriki out of the 9-tailed Jinchurikis such as Naruto, the 9-tailed Jinchuriki was the Kazekage of Suna. Shortly after Sand and Sound failed to destroy Konoha, and retreated back to their villages, they discovered the real Kazekage's corpse 5 miles away, and by the looks he was killed before the last Chunin exams. This led the Sand village believe they were deceived by Orochimaru, and that they were following orders from a fake Kazekage. After this discovery, Sand immediately opened the position up for Kazekage, which led to the shinobi of the best fighting for it. Literally, it wasn't by then Gaara stopped the fighting and took up the position. The council didn't like the idea of the murdering demon brat being the Kazekage after taking countless lives from his own village without getting punished thanks to the help of his father who was the dead Kazekage now, but times were tough so they didn't have a choice. For the past 6 months many of the Sand villagers and shinobi distrusted Gaara for his killer past, but in time they learned to forgive him, and realized that they made a mistake by hating him at first for having the 1-tailed beast inside of him. It all wouldn't have happened if Naruto hadn't shown Gaara from the dark to the light. Showing him that there was more than killing in life, which also made Naruto a brother to him, including for Temari and Kankuro who both took a liking to Naruto ever since he changed their brother for the great of good. Since Gaara or any other Jinchuriki besides Naruto were there, it had to be him. It was surprising for Tsunade, and Jiraiya, considering the fact that Jiraiya ensured everyone that he placed a seal much stronger than that of Minato's seal on Naruto since the demon was sealed in him. But even the master of seals failed to properly keep the fox's chakra sealed inside of Naruto. It could be because of the fact that the Kyuubi had been working on the seal his student had placed him in a long time ago, slowly like a prison pushing and pulling the weakest bar until he grew skillful of it, and even placed in a tougher prison he was strong enough to break the other bar. Though they didn't know for sure, which was why these 4 were sent. These 4 were Anko, Iruka, Shizune, and Kakashi, sent by Tsunade herself. Flashback. A few minutes ago. In the Hokage's tower, in the office, Tsunade who was looking across her desk to see Kakashi, Anko, Iruka, and Shizune who was wearing something different rather than her dark kimono. Instead she wore a Junin uniform, one that was a little big for her, mainly because her arms couldn't fit the sleeves of the clothes. Tsunade who next to her was Jiraiya who both had serious looks on their faces looked the participants for the mission. As you all know, for the Genins who left the Forest of Death had reported that they sensed some strange powerful chakra. This indicates that this chakra they sensed was none of other but the 9-tailed beast's chakra, though I can't really say for sure that it is Naruto's demon chakra, but just in case I want you 4 sent there. Tsunade informed. Tsunade-sama, why is the sensei of the academy here? Anko asked, as Sei narrowed her eyes at Iruka, mainly for the last time they spoke. Last time they didn't really have such a good conversation, mainly because of their debate about Naruto, and the last sentence Iruka had told of her. Iruka mainly stayed focused of Tsunade's orders. Because Anko, Iruka and Naruto, as I heard, had been friends for a long time and share a strong connection. Remember I said if it was Naruto who used the chakra everyone reported about, he may be getting back to the Kyuubi. I need those who are the closest to him to calm him down. As for you, you're an expert on the Forest of Death, you know a lot more than anyone else, which makes you a guide. Kakashi can try and use his Sharingan to push the Kyuubi back into Naruto, and Shizune will offer her medical expertise in case things go wrong in the mission, understand? Tsunade asked. Yes, Tsunade-sama. They all replied. Before you leave, I want you four to keep your noses off of the other business. Remember, this is the second test of the Chunin exams for the Genins who might become Chunin. If anyone tries to kill one another, I don't want you to interfere, including with Naruto, only if he loses control of the Kyuubi. Tsunade explained. Tsunade-sama, we all do respect, but Naruto is simply too young to die. I cannot allow one of my students or any of them to die over the Chunin exams, they're just too young. In any case, I have to interfere whether they like it or not. Iruka said. You don't understand, do you? Anko said. These kids decided to go for the Chunin exams on their own. They survived the last Chunin exams. You can't just save them when they are in trouble. There'll be times at which that they need to save themselves. Save them, then who can they rely on? Anko said. But, Iruka said. She's right, Iruka. These kids are no longer children anymore. They picked up the life of a shinobi by themselves. It was their choice, not yours. This mission you're focusing on Naruto or something that may have started that chakra surge. Only if Naruto is out of control of the Kyuubi may you help, but if it's anything other, don't. Jiraiya said. Tsunade-sama, be reasonable, they're still young, and it's been at least about 10 months since they graduated. Any other shinobi became Chunin at least 4 or 5 years since they graduated. I haven't become Chunin, at least I was 18. I became Genin when I was 13. 5 years after I graduated, they're not ready. Iruka said. Enough. Tsunade said, with stern in her voice, which made Iruka shocked. Iruka, I have to say that I am grateful how you care a lot about your students, but there are times that they will need themselves to protect against danger. If we all ever do is protect the Genins who will protect Konoha from decades from now, or protect them from danger in the future on their own, your mission is simple: stop Naruto from losing control of the Kyuubi or find if someone other did that chakra spike, nothing more. Tsunade explained. Flashback ends. Iruka, who was highly against this decision, had no choice but to accept it. He agrees Tsunade was right, but the age Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke, along with the rest of his students are at, he thought it was too much for them. Despite the fact that they went through last Chunin exams. Though Iruka couldn't help but feel responsible for them, even though he's no longer their sensei, he still feels as though that they need his help more than before. But for what Tsunade had said to him was right, they were Konoha's future. Not all the present shinobi protect the village forever, they could only protect it for so long. They didn't know what they might be up against, but whatever caused the chakra spike might have been Naruto, or someone else. They bet it would be somebody else rather than Naruto. With the strength of the Kyuubi being burnt in their memories permanently. Remembering the destruction that an easily Rasengan caused, blowing the whole forest apart as if it was nothing. And to be honest, they didn't expect it was the full strength or a quarter of the Kyuubis. If anything like that ever happened again, they didn't how to deal with it. Perhaps they should be lucky that Sakura must be with Naruto, seeing how she managed to calm him down, and help him to push the Kyuubi back. If it worked before, then it had to work again. So how do we take care of the brat in case if he goes crazy? Anko asked, as she picked up her pace next to Kakashi. I'm not so sure, Anko. Kakashi replied. Judging from how much chakra the Kyuubi managed to leak out of Naruto, all I can say is that he may be soon up to his quarter of the power. Also there is Naruto who's under the Kyuubi's control we're worried about. If we have to attack the Kyuubi we have to attack him. Plus if the Kyuubi goes that far with his power we may not be lucky as we were 13 years ago fighting the Kyuubi as we were before. Minato-sensei was the only one strong enough to beat him and seal him away into Naruto. Kakashi explained. If that happens I don't want to go against my student, he's still inside, any physical injury towards the Kyuubi also injures his body, and perhaps could kill him if we overdo it, therefore releasing the Kyuubi, until his physical form is restored. Iruka continued for Kakashi. How long will it take for the Kyuubi to restore its physical form? Anko asked. From what Tsunade-sama told me demons that were released form the Jinchurikis after they died take at least months until they are restored to their physical form. It depends mainly on the amount of chakra form nature and living things they absorb so if the Kyuubi goes to an efficient supply it will at least take a month. Shizune replied, explaining the situation they are in. It's been 13 years since the Kyuubi last attacked, we're ready for it unlike last time. Anko said, with a cocky tone. No, it won't. Kakashi said. Many shinobi that day were trained with surprise attacks demon or not, even though we expect the Kyuubi to attack again we won't stand a chance, in fact I believe the next time the Kyuubi attacks Konoha is finished. Kakashi explained. It was true, the power of the Kyuubi was unbelievable that no one would know was true. It was so powerful many hidden villages take high priority when the Kyuubi attacks, very few fought back, only to meet a terrible end, and others abandoned the village, in order for the villagers to survive and rebuild, those that did only few rebuild at different locations, while others rebuilt at the same location as their village fell after the Kyuubi left, and there were those that never rebuilt, and scattered to the winds. I have a question, Shizune said. It's about Naruto-kun. He's an Uzumaki by half in blood, I read his records, and after the truth about his parents I seen the name, Uzumaki, on Kushina, and with a bit of research I found out that Kushina is related to the great Uzumaki clan that was believed to separate 40 years ago, and I hear that well, they had the Kyuubi inside of the heirs, is it true? Shizune asked, as she turned her head towards Kakashi, who didn't turn his head, but instead listened. Yes, it is true. Kakashi replied. The Uzumaki clan was great, because of their use of wind jutsus, and also because of their seal making. The Uzumaki clan was considered to be one of the great clans with no bloodline, unless you consider the Kyuubi part as their bloodline, from what Kushina told me, 400 years ago after the Bloodline Wars, after the Great Alliance won, it was determined who the nine-tailed beasts would belong to. The Kyuubi was decided to be sealed inside the heir of the Uzumaki clan and only the heir of the Uzumaki clan. Only the Uzumakis possess the Kyuubi. Kakashi explained. In the Bloodline Wars, there were two sides, the Great Alliance, who believed in to fight for those who couldn't, and the Separates Alliance. It may sound like a strange name, but they are called that mainly because of their reasoning for using their bloodlines. The war was consistent with clans with bloodlines, or what they are specialized for. Years in the Uzumaki clan only the heirs ever possessed the Kyuubi for their home village Whirlpool. Whirlpool was the first alliance Konoha during its creation made, in order to receive aid to help them build the village. Unfortunately 40 years ago, the village hidden in the Whirlpool was destroyed, mainly because of a drought which forced many of its people to abandon the village. Also because of the death of the Uzukage and the Whirlpool daimyo. It was by then that the Uzumaki clan itself fought and killed their own members for the positions, therefore scattering the clan to the winds. Kakashi explained. Really? Then why didn't someone else take the position of leader outside the clan? Anko asked. Because only those of the Uzumaki clan are allowed. Kakashi replied. Kushina Uzumaki, who was the heir to the Uzumaki clan, was traveling to Konoha. She told me she notified the third Hokage and was making her way. Unfortunately, her parents died when the battle for the positions were over. Kushina was the only survivor, while the rest of the Uzumaki clan scattered to the winds. She took everything, all the secrets, and money of the Uzumaki clan, and hoped to rebuild the clan in Konoha. While she was traveling to Konoha, she encountered Cloud Nin, who took her and were planning to rebuild the Uzumaki clan in the village hidden in the cloud, along with her clan's secrets and fortune. However, unknown to the Cloud Nin, Anbu from Konoha who were sent to escort Kushina saw the whole thing. Knowing of their strength, they left to inform Konoha. It didn't take long before he saved. Kakashi explained, in detail. Let me guess that he was the fourth Hokage? Iruka asked. Yes, it was. Kakashi replied. Minato-sensei, who was Chunin that time, was ordered to save Kushina Uzumaki. They were similar ages to Naruto now. Kakashi said. It was by then that Minato-sensei had helped Kushina to Konoha, and in alliance with the Uzumaki clan, being one of the great clans of Konoha. However, that wasn't all that began that day, something else more. Kakashi said. That day, Minato-sensei and Kushina fell in love. To Kushina she told the story to my whole team, referring it as a love story. Kakashi finished. But wait, if the Uzumaki clan is one of the great clans of Konoha, then why didn't anyone think of Naruto as part of the heir of the Uzumaki clan? Shizune asked. Because Shizune, the Uzumaki clan made many enemies, and so after the death of Minato-sensei and Kushina, the third Hokage told Konoha that Kushina was not the heir of the Uzumaki clan. It was to keep Naruto safe. Minato-sensei wasn't the only one who made enemies, the Uzumaki clan did as well. Therefore we had to keep Naruto's status of being part of the Uzumaki clan a secret as well. We just told everyone that he's not an legitimate Uzumaki from the Uzumaki clan, and his clan was different from theirs. Kakashi explained. That must have complicated things for the third Hokage. Anko guessed. True. Kakashi confirmed. It was a difficult decision. Even if we revealed Naruto was a true Uzumaki, it could have changed his childhood for the better. The third Hokage had to live with great regret for his choice. This choice was for his own good, as the enemies of the Uzumaki clan didn't go after him. However, the civilian council became Naruto's enemies, and not because of the Kyuubi, but his fortune. The third Hokage always suspected that the civilian council could try to either banish or kill Naruto for his fortune. Since Naruto was related to Mito Uzumaki, the last daimyo of Whirlpool, the Uzumaki fortune along with the Namikaze fortune belonged to him. Since we kept his heritage a secret, the third Hokage hid the fortune away where no one where to look for except for those of his students and any other future Hokages, so that one day Naruto would come to claim it. His fortune in a way is perhaps by now 70 times greater than that of the Fur Daimyos. Kakashi finished. What? Do you know how many dumplings I can get with that amount of money? Asked a very shocked Anko. A great many. Kakashi replied. Since we had no choice but to reveal his heritage early before he could be banished, Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama suspected that this year's Chunin exams could host a few enemies of Minato-sensei's, the Namikaze clan, and the Uzumaki clan. Kakashi said. Then this could complicate things, seeing how we shouldn't fight against the genins we are inviting this year for the brats sake. If we do that, then who will trust us? Anko said. Exactly. But maybe Naruto and the rest of the Konoha rookies may help him in this matter. Kakashi said, which gave a nod by Anko, Iruka, and Shizune in agreement. With Ayato, Ino, and Choji, the three genins stopped as they felt that large chakra spike, with their eyes widened in shock. What was that? Ino asked. As she looked back to the dark and deep forest, all she could hear was an echo of a scream, but it was faint. Judging from what she heard, it could have been far from their location. But the chakra spike she and Choji and Ayato felt was huge. Please don't tell me, Choji thought with wide eyes of shock, and with Ino realizing Choji's expression, she too realized what that spike belonged to. Naruto. They both thought, in exclamation. Sounded like someone was hurt. It must have been one of the genins. Ayato said, before looking at Choji, and Ino with wide eyes, he grew curious and asked, is it somebody you know who's getting hurt? I mean, if he is a friend or anything, I'm sure we can help. No, it's no one. Ino gave a fake smile while sweat dropping. Choji opened his mouth as he was about to say something, but that was before Ino blocked it, and walked behind a tree with Choji. Could you give us a minute please? Ino asked, before making her way to the tree with Choji. After hiding behind a tree, Choji opened his mouth after Ino released it and said, "What are you doing, Ino? If it's Naruto, we need to do something." "Shish. Quiet. Do you think I don't want to help Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke for whatever trouble they are in? I know that the whole Kyuubi thing is dangerous with Naruto. But remember what happened when we tried to fight Kyuubi? Sakura was the only one to calm him down, and as far as she's with him, I'm sure there's nothing we need to worry about," Ino assured, as a small smile secured her lips. "But Ino, what happens if Sakura isn't with him?" Choji asked. Ino knew he was right. If Naruto wasn't with Sakura at the time the Kyuubi was taking control of the body, things would go horribly wrong. Sighing in defeat, Ino replied, "You're right, Choji, we have to help them, mainly we don't want to lose Naruto to the Kyuubi, and also die by the hands of him. I hope Ayato can understand." "I understand," Ayato said. Ino squeaked and looked behind her to see Ayato there standing looking at her and Choji. "Sorry to scare you, but I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. And to tell you the truth, you two were not exactly whispering, more or less loud whispers, loud enough for others to hear," Ayato said. "So let's go and help your friends," Ayato said. "With Naruto, Sakura, and Kageyaki." Crash. Boom. That was the sound of the fifth tree that collapsed due to Kyuubi Naruto's claws. He looked at the genin who threatened to kill Sakura, and smiled at him evilly. "Didn't you say you wanted to fight me till I died? Why not kill me now? Or are you a coward, Kesho?" Kyuubi Naruto mocked the weakened Kesho member. Rage filled his face, but only for a moment, when his eyes widened and he immediately dodged one of Kyuubi Naruto's tails that tried to strike him. Boom. "You're so weak." Kyuubi Naruto laughed hysterically. On the ground behind him, Sakura was up and looking at Kyuubi Naruto with shocked and sad eyes. Her lover was once again taken over by the Kyuubi. The Naruto who was stupid, kind, energetic, and fun, was replaced by a dark and sinister version of himself. It pained her to see him in this state. Crystal style. Crystal spike barrage. From out of the ground, Kageyaki summoned crystals that looked like spikes, and charged them towards Kyuubi Naruto. Kyuubi Naruto simply smiled at his pathetic attempt to attack him. With ease, the spikes slowly dissolved before even touching Kyuubi Naruto. Kyuubi Naruto smirked again, while Kageyaki's eyes burst open in shock. What? I don't understand, how? Exclaimed Kageyaki in shock. Now let me explain. Kyuubi Naruto smirked. Isn't it simple? My demon's chakra dissolved your crystals. That's because just like regular chakra, it's generated and surrounds not only in human beings but in nature as well. Crystals are formed by rocks and earth for thousands of years, which are part of nature, so they have nature chakra as well, so my demon's chakra overwhelms that of regular chakra. In other words, your crystals are useless against me. Kyuubi Naruto explained hysterically. No, it's not possible. Crystal style. Crystal clones. Immediately, giant spikes of crystals came from the ground, and shrunk and curved to form himself as crystal versions. 10 of them were created, all looked at the real Kageyaki. The only difference was that they had no other color but purple, just like the crystals. Attack! Kageyaki ordered, and immediately all 10 clones attacked Kyuubi Naruto, more or less charged at him, and was prepared to attack. But with ease, Kyuubi Naruto closed his eyes and spat in amusement, and within a second, when one of the clones was at least a centimeter away from Kyuubi Naruto. Just as the clone's right arm shaped into a spike, Kyuubi Naruto's tails, all 9 of them, grabbed the clone, 2 by his left leg, 2 by his right leg, 2 by his right arm, 2 by his left arm, and 1 by his neck. Repeat. Shatters of purple light crystals fell everywhere like splashed water, amazing the clones, Kageyaki, and Sakura in terror, as the one Kajayaki clone was ripped to shreds, only leaving 9 clones. "What are you doing? Attack!" Kajayaki shouted. The clones all looked at each other, and then back at Kyuubi Naruto, and charged at him again after stopping. Kyuubi Naruto opened his eyes and slowly walked towards the real Kajayaki. One by one, as the clones jumped at him, he swung his tails without any effort, destroying the clones with easy swifts. Swift. Boom. 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 Every clone was easily blown up by the 9 tails. Kajayaki, who had his jaw dropped from shock and horror, decided it was time to make his leave. Sure, he wanted revenge for his clan against the Namikaze clan, but if he had died he would only bring shame, and that he didn't want to die. Panicked, he left the site immediately by jumping high towards a branch. However, he stopped as a tail grabbed his right leg, and immediately sent him down to the ground and threw him there. Boom. Kajayaki tried to get up from the crater, but the tail still kept his leg, and swung him to the opposite direction and threw him back at the other side. Boom. 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 The tail swung him back and forth to the ground every time, creating larger craters each time. When Kyuubi Naruto decided to try something else, he moved his tail around Kajayaki's neck from his leg, and strangled him, and then threw him towards a tree with the tail holding him still. Boom. Kajayaki's vision was blur, after he turned his bloodline off to prevent chakra lose. He looked at Kyuubi Naruto as he slowly walked towards him, holding him hard in place. After his vision returned, Kajayaki's eyes grew worried and terrified for himself, as Kyuubi Naruto smirked evilly at him, while holding out his right claw, ready to swipe Kajayaki up. As Kyuubi Naruto was getting closer, Sakura immediately had flashbacks of how Kyuubi Naruto reacted back then, back when he changed. She didn't want Naruto to do this, she didn't want him to kill someone out of his own free will by someone else. A few tears fell from her green jade eyes, as she looked at Kyuubi Naruto, while looking deadly at Kajayaki with his red fox eyes replaced from his blue cerulean eyes. Without another second, immediately she sprinted to Kyuubi Naruto. "Naruto-kun!" Sakura yelled. Kyuubi Naruto stopped, as he listened to Sakura. Not her. Not her again, he thought. "Stop!" Sakura yelled. And in an instant, Kyuubi Naruto felt as though he was pushed from his back, as a bit of weight hanged on him. Around his chest a pair of arms wrapped around him, knowing now fully it was Sakura. "Please, sniff, please stop, I'm okay," Sakura said between tears. Slowly, the tail that grabbed Kajayaki by the neck let go, and slowly along with the rest of the tails retreated back to Kyuubi Naruto, disappearing from sight. Kyuubi Naruto's red fox eyes were gone, and replaced by Naruto's regular eyes. His teeth slowly changed back to normal, along with his claws back to hands, and the red chakra disappearing. Now Kyuubi Naruto was again Naruto. Naruto with his head slouching down. Kajayaki looked in shock and horror, as the events turned upside down. 1 minute he was facing death, and the next he was saved by the very person he tried to kill. Though it didn't really make them friends, his intentions to kill Naruto was still there. The only reason why he didn't take the chance to kill Naruto and Sakura now was because he was out of chakra, and that he could hardly move either. Kajayaki-san. Kajayaki heard the voices of his teammates. Sakura looked up to see 2 shadow figures come up, but they were basically the same age as her and Naruto, 13 years old. Once they landed on their feet after doing a small whirl down to the ground, they looked similar to one another. Basically, she saw them as twins. They both had spiky brown hair, fair skin, and dark eyes. They also had the same pair of clothes, blue ninja shoes, dark t-shirts, with a bit of gray armor over them, and dark pants. The only difference was that they had on the back of their armor was their names to tell the difference. On one said, "Yo," and the other, "How," and over their names was small swords comparable to long knives. Are you? Yo said. Okay. Hao said. Yes, I'm okay. Kajayaki said, as Yo, and Hao, wrapped his arms around their necks, and lifted him up, giving him a leg up. Want us to deal with them? Yo said, as he eyed Sakura, holding in her arms the slouching Naruto. No, just leave them, trust me, we're not ready to fight them yet. Kajayaki warned. He's right, Naruto said, and slowly he started to lift his head up and look at the genins. Once he did, all they saw was his narrowed eyes, looking at them like daggers. Leave, before I kill you. Naruto warned, and immediately the two genins with their third one left. This isn't over, Namikaze. I will get revenge for the Kesho clan. Just you wait, was all Kajayaki shouted, before his voice disappeared in the forest. Naruto once again had his head slouched. Sakura slowly settled him down on the ground, and looked at him. Naruto had his eyes closed. It seemed as though while in his Kyuubi Naruto form he got hurt using it. Not that it's surprising, with the amount of chakra in him anyone would be hurt. Sakura put her fingers by the side of his head to get a pulse, luckily she did. She sighed in relief to feel that Naruto was okay. She sat down next to him, putting her right hand on his chest, clenching it hard. Not in pain, but in disappointment directed at her weakness, how she couldn't even help Naruto to go against Kajayaki, even though Naruto wanted her to stay out of it. Sakura should have helped him anyway, even if it meant she wouldn't made a difference in the outcome of the fight, but still she could have helped. Naruto-kun, Sakura said. Whack. From Naruto's back was a thin long tail that tapped itself on Sakura's forehead. Before she had time to react to it, her eyes widened, and immediately her body became limp, feeling as though she was about to be knocked out. Her vision became blurry, till it was dark. Naruto's mindscape. Opening her eyes once more, Sakura found she was not in the Forest of Death, or anywhere, not in Konoha, not in Fire Country, in fact really not anywhere, but a dark room, or at least Sakura thought it was, standing on a water ground with pale brown glow in a circle shape. She looked ahead of herself to see Naruto's unconscious body on the ground in front of what appeared to be a giant golden cage, one she may not like to see inside of it. Immediately Sakura rushed to Naruto. Naruto-kun, she shouted, as she kneeled beside him to his left, and shook him to wake him up. Unfortunately Naruto didn't wake up. While trying to wake Naruto up, Sakura couldn't help but hear the sounds of footsteps. Giant footstep come from in front of her. Looking back at the large golden cage in front of her, Sakura could only shiver in fear as she saw the one thing people in the past talked about, people who were scared, who witnessed the demon itself, the Kyuubi. The stories her mom told her about the creature being large was true, but she never imagined him being this big. It made her feel better that a cage separated her, Naruto, and the Kyuubi from each other, otherwise who know what'll happen to them. It's you, Sakura said, silently in fear. The Kyuubi, Sakura said. Yes, it is I. Finally it seems as though I have a different person to speak with, since this brat here is too noisy to speak to. I wonder why he's like that. The Kyuubi said, mockingly. Sakura, in rage from Kyuubi's words, stood up and walked in front of Naruto. Maybe because it's a mask. A mask he was forced to put on because of you. If you hadn't attacked the village that day, then maybe Naruto-kun wouldn't have to suffer. Sakura screamed. Just like the idiot, you believe that I attacked the village by my own free will. As I tried to say to the fool, I was forced. The Kyuubi said sternly in anger. But just like Naruto, you don't believe me at all, do you? Kyuubi sighed. You're right, I don't believe you. Sakura replied. All I know is that because of you, Naruto-kun had to live a life of suffering. He rejected any teachings, he was thrown out of many shops, had no one to call a friend, and was broken by many people, all because of the attack you caused him 13 years ago. Sakura said, in defense. Like you don't have anything to do with his suffering too. Think about it. For years that brat wanted to be with you, but all you ever did was hurt him, and break him. The only reason you want to be with him is because of your fears of me, and him. The Kyuubi said, back. This caused Sakura to widen her eyes. In shock, the words also pained her to the heart, knowing that part of what the Kyuubi said about Naruto was true. What do you mean fear him? I love him. I love Naruto-kun. And I always will. Sakura shot back. But that's what you say. Believe what you want, but the truth is that you're scared of him. You're terrified that the next time I take over his body you're gonna be hurt. In simple terms, I'm sure you know that a Jinchuriki's emotions also control that of the beast inside of them. For as long as I'm in this boy he's suffered a lot, yet his anger and sadness didn't reach to the point at which it weakened the seal on him, till you started to reject him harder. By then I already took over most of his body. Last month you broke him, I finally made my move, till you managed to put me back in my cage by encouraging that kid. The Kyuubi explained. Wait, you remember? Sakura exclaimed. Remember what? Let me think. Ah yes, perhaps to the point at which that Hokage of yours ordered that Yakumana to erase his memories of the time you broke him to the point he regained control, in order to prevent him from running away again, and releasing me again. Is that what you asked for then? Yes. I remember. The Kyuubi replied. How? Sakura asked, in disbelief. As you, his friends, the Hokage, the Junins, the Chunin, and the sage all said, we are two different entities, not the same, that includes our memories. Even if the Yakumana was to erase mine, my chakra level will immediately stop his jutsu, in other words I'll never forget that time. The Kyuubi said, just like all the other times of our abuse. Even though we're separate entities, I felt his pain, emotions, and see his memories, but he cannot mine. For years I felt both physical and mental pain, pain which I'll avenge once he's broken the seal. The Kyuubi said. That'll never happen. Yes, I am scared, but not Naruto-kun. But for Naruto-kun, when he was possessed by you his body took a heavy beating, you were destroying it. I'm scared because of the next time he uses you and gets controlled he'll end up exactly the same or worse. Maybe more if you use his body to kill everyone and destroy everything he loves. Sakura said, her voice filled with determination. Hey, we'll see about that. Kyuubi said. You may have erased his memories and lied to him about his injuries after you brought him back, but be warned, I'll show him the truth, and he will know. The Kyuubi said, just before he disappeared into the darkness, and Naruto, and Sakura along with him. Back outside, Sakura immediately woke up while kneeling next to Naruto on her knees. She saw the demon chakra's thin tail retreat back to the unconscious Naruto. Looking at Naruto after speaking to Kyuubi, Sakura can remember that day, the day which she first met Naruto. Flashback. 7 years ago, location, academy, specific location, in the forest. Ha 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 ha. Look at how IG her forehead is. It would make a great mirror. Let's play some target practice and hit her forehead. That sounds like fun. Yeah, it does. These were the laughs of Sakura's bullies teasing. Remembering that day she was wearing pink t-shirt, a brown skirt, and blue ninja shoes, with a red bow over her head. She was 6 years old that day. Her clothes were full of dirt with bullying, and she was in the forest surrounded by all of her bullies. Please, sniff, leave me alone. Sakura said, between sniffs, as tears fell from her eyes. Like we would, I mean it's fun. One of the girls laughed, as she picked up a rock, and threw it at Sakura's forehead. Sakura winced in pain as the rock hit her forehead. She looked at the girl, only to close her eyes as soon as she picked up a much sharper rock, and threw it at her forehead. However, it never hit her. Instead she opened her eyes to see that the rock hit someone else, the person in front of her. A boy her age, 6 years old, wearing a dark t-shirt, orange pants, and blue ninja shoes. Sakura could only see his back, but she could tell he had blonde spiky hair. Leave her alone. The boy yelled at the girl. Oh look, it's the little demon. Here to save the forehead girl. One of the girls laughed. I said leave her alone or else. The boy threatened, raising his voice to show the girls he meant it. Though it didn't faze them at all, more or less got one of them angry. Or else what? She said, before, punch. The boy punched her in the face, and forced her to the ground, and started beating her. The other girls reacted fast, while they started to kick the boy off of their friend and beat him instead, while they helped the girl out and she started beating on him as well. The boy started to move his arms all over the place trying to protect his face, and trying to get up, but every time he tried the girls kept pushing him back down. Sakura could only look in fear for the boy, while at the same time feeling ashamed as she couldn't do anything to help him. After around 5 minutes, the girls stopped, while panting at the same time, tired from beating the boy. They decided it was time to head home, and left as they smiled at what they had accomplished. Sakura, looking at the boy, could only move in closer to him. She looked at the blonde-haired boy, and moved him to face her. Once she did that, she could see his face, his whisker-like marks 3 on each side of his cheeks. Recognizing him, all she could think of was the boy she heard so much about, who was always being scolded in class. She noticed him a lot of times but never really interacted with him, mainly due to some of the teachers preventing their students from talking to him. She remembered he used to play with other kids, yet they stopped because of their parents' fear for their lives. Sakura's mother was the only one who didn't fear for her child's life being with this kid. Feeling sorry for him, Sakura shook him slowly, but he didn't react, he didn't move. She was worried, so she slowly put his arm over her shoulder, and tried to lift him. She found it difficult at first, but then she managed, and started walking towards the hospital. Location: Konoha's hospital, specific location, main entrance. But why? Sakura asked with tears filling her eyes. Because we don't accept that thing here. A doctor said, while narrowing his eyes at the boy. If he got his injuries from attacking innocent children, then he deserves it. He said. But they were bullying me, he tried to protect me. Sakura tears up. Please help him, she screamed, yet the doctor or anyone had any indication they felt sorry for them, most of them more likely didn't care. Sakura, now knowing full well she wasn't gonna get any help from here, decided to leave. Fine, I'll take him to my mother, she said, before she left the hospital. Location: Haruno house, specific location, the kitchen. In the kitchen, Mrs. Haruno was washing dishes and humming in her head. She suddenly heard a loud bang on the door, and walked by to see her daughter holding the boy and walking towards her. Mom, help please. He's hurt. Immediately Mrs. Haruno went by Sakura's side, and carried the boy to their living room, and laid him down on their sofa. Sakura, what happened? Mrs. Haruno asked. I was bullied again. He saved me, but he got hurt. They left, so I picked him up and took him to the hospital, but they didn't care, so I took him here. Mrs. Haruno carried the boy to the living room, onto the sofa. You did a good thing, Sakura. Please, get me the medic kit, she said, as her daughter rushed to the kitchen to get the medic kit. Looking at the boy, Mrs. Haruno already identified him by looking at his whisker-like marks. Mom, I got it, Sakura called, as she was carrying a little white box and gave it to her mother. After patching up the boy, Mrs. Haruno told her daughter to watch over him, as she would go and get the third Hokage. Looking at the boy, she still knew who he was but didn't know his name. She couldn't help but blush by looking closer at him, at his face. Gah! The boy groaned, before he got up, shocking Sakura, and making her step back. The boy opened his blue cerulean eyes, and looked around, and saw he was no longer at the academy, but a room. He then saw green jade eyes and looked at Sakura, who looked at the boy. What happened? The boy asked. You were beaten by those girls that bullied me. Thank you, you saved me. Sakura thanked. Hee, what can I say? Sometimes I'd like to help people. Only if they give me a chance. That last sentence, Sakura could tell he was upset, when he looked down with his eyes. Though that only lasted for a few seconds before returning his look to her. Never mind that, Thanks anyway for helping me. The boy thanked Sakura. That's okay. I just wanted to say thank you for helping me. It should be me thanking you. If it wasn't for you, those bullies would have kept hurting me. Thank you. Sakura said to the boy. What's your name? Sakura asked. My name's Naruto Uzumaki, the next Hokage, and don't forget it. The boy now known as Naruto said, in an energetic tone. Flashback ends. Tears streamed down Sakura's eyes as she remembered the day she and Naruto promised they would always be together. Flashback begins. Mrs. Haruno watched her daughter Sakura parting ways with Naruto for the rest of the day. Bye Naruto-kun, I do really think you can become Hokage. Sakura said. Thanks Sakura-chan, I'm sure you'll be a great Kunoichi. Naruto said. Naruto left the house, and then walked back to his apartment. It was by then that Mrs. Haruno had witnessed Sakura's love for Naruto. By that day she sworn to earn Naruto's love. Unfortunately, the next day, Mrs. Haruno saw her daughter had changed. Flashback ends. For Sakura it was a painful memory. She promised she would earn Naruto's love, and get stronger. Instead, just like the other girls, she became one of Sasuke's fangirls. Because of her decision, Naruto almost left the village, with the Kyuubi taking over his body. She was saddened, and knew the Kyuubi was right, though she now saw Naruto as a lover now, but she can't take back everything she had done in the past, and that made her feel guilty. With Sasuke and Hinata, along with the sound team. As Hinata ran through, dodging every paper bomb that almost hit her, with her Byakugan activated, she ran straight towards Cage. While he used his wind katana to strike Hinata, Hinata slid under the sword, and used her right palm to hit him on the right leg joint, forcing Cage to kneel down in pain. Above Hinata, Hana was doing a series of hand signs, and said, poison style, acid rain. A shower of acid rain fell towards Hinata. Hinata looked at the acid rain falling towards her, and with no time to move, that was before a hand grabbed her right hand, and pulled her with amazing strength. As Hinata was thrown, she saw Sasuke had pulled her, and looked at the acid rain, before shouting, fire style, fireball jutsu. A fireball collided with the acid rain, thereby having no effect on it. The fireball continued its way towards Hana, who was later launched by the fireball. Boom! She was blown straight towards a tree by the explosion of the fireball. Boom! Saraisu then jumped from behind Sasuke, preparing to throw a fist at him. Sasuke turned quickly, and caught the fist, and punched Saraisu. Saraisu caught the punch, and tried to punch Sasuke. Sasuke caught the punch, and punched Saraisu. This went on for a while, before Sasuke tripped Saraisu to the ground. Cage came behind Sasuke, and attempted to stab him in the back. That was before Hinata quickly came, and palmed Cage in the stomach, forcing him meters away from them, while Sasuke punched Saraisu in the face, and kicked him, sending him flying away. Seems like they don't stand a chance. Sasuke said, as he smiled at Hinata, who smiled back at Sasuke. We were only holding back, besides it's more fun to have fighting last a little while longer. Cage said, as he made a series of hand signs, before putting them back on his katana, and shouting, air katana style, long-range jutsu. Immediately, the blue chakra air sword expanded towards Sasuke and Hinata. Sasuke pushed Hinata away, before he managed to duck, before the air blade hit him. Above Hinata, Saraisu done a series of hand signs before shouting, sound style, sound wave. When he opened his mouth, a large sound wave headed straight towards Hinata. Hinata immediately dodged, before. Boom! The sound wave hit the ground hard like a boulder. Hana grabbed Hinata by the back, and thrown her towards Sasuke, who caught her quickly bridal style. That's when Saraisu and Cage came by, and done a series of hand signs, before both shouted, fire style, fireball jutsu. Two large fireballs were both forming to one, heading straight towards the two genins. Sasuke-kun, I have an idea. Hinata shouted, before jumping out of Sasuke's arms, and began spinning around Sasuke and Hinata, and sphere of blue chakra surrounded them both, as Hinata kept on spinning, 8 trigrams and 64 palms. Hinata shouted. The fireballs soon hit Sasuke and Hinata. As the flames covered them went away, it revealed that the genins were fine. Hinata stopped her spinning, and collapsed, before Sasuke caught her. Looking at Hinata, he saw the tips of her fingers almost burnt from the fireball. I tried, Hinata said. Fire style. Fire dragon jutsu. Saraisu yelled, as a large amount of fire came out of his mouth and formed into a large dragon, heading straight towards Sasuke and Hinata. Slowly putting Hinata down on the ground, Sasuke did a series of hand signs, before shouting, Fire style, fire barrier jutsu. A large wall of fire separated them from the dragon. The dragon still charged at it, before hitting the barrier. Boom! A large fiery explosion happened after that, with a radius of 20 meters. Sasuke made another barrier, after jumping on Hinata, and covering both of them. As Saraisu saw what he had done, he had made his own barrier, while Kage and Hana jumped away as fast as they could form the explosion. As the smoke cleared, it revealed the tall dark trees now burnt down, along with the dirt and grass. As Sasuke undid the barrier, he and Hinata were laying on what's left of the grass, before looking with shocked eyes at what had happened. Saraisu also dropped the barrier, and was prepared to fight them again. One more time, he yelled, before, punch. Hana, who went by Saraisu's side, had punched him on the head. Idiot. Look what you've done, Hana yelled, as she pointed at both Sasuke and Hinata. They first grew confused, before looking in front of them, to see both the heaven and earth scrolls they had, were now burnt. You burned the scroll we were looking for. And ours as well, Hana yelled. Fool, what were you thinking, using such a powerful jutsu on genins like that? Kage said. They pissed me off, Saraisu yelled. Do you want the Otokage-sama to find out about Saraisu? Kage said, as he eyed Saraisu. Both Saraisu and Hana paled at what Kage had said, and looked at each other, before looking at Sasuke and Hinata. We were after your scroll, but since it's gone there's no point in fighting anymore, I suppose. Saraisu said, before he, Hana, and Kage had left. With Naruto and Sakura. As Sakura dragged the unconscious Naruto on the ground, by the shoulders, she slowly put him down on the ground to catch her breath. Looking at Naruto, she knew he wasn't gonna wake up anytime soon. Continuing to drag him, she put him aside on a tree, with his back facing against it. After that, she looked around his body to see if he had any injuries, but thanks to the Kyuubi's chakra, they were all healed. Though she was happy, but also guilty, since she couldn't do anything about it. Now that she recalls it, everything she did as a ninja was mostly nothing. Even on their first mission as Team 7, Sakura didn't do anything. It was always Naruto and Sasuke that had done all the work. Looking at Naruto, his state was perhaps the result of Sakura's weakness. Recalling all the missions they had done, she always said, "Good work" to Sasuke, and scolded Naruto every time. Sakura couldn't help but feel guilty over this. And hungry. She felt her stomach growl, and decided to find food. Sensing no one around her, she decided to leave Naruto there, being hopeful that no one touches him. She walked down far into the forest searching for anything that's food. As she did, she looked around the dark forest, but couldn't find anything. She reached a certain location of the forest, with a bright brown patch like a pond large there. She ignored it, and walked on top of it. As she did, her pace slowed down a bit, her feet were getting stuck in it, and as she looked down she saw her feet were sunk into it, and she couldn't move. What the? Sakura said. She grabbed her right leg, and pulled, but as she tried, her left leg sunk deeper, and her right too, until she was up to her hips, as it began pulling her a little faster. After her attempts she realized she was sinking in. quicksand, Sakura said to herself, as her legs began to shiver in fear. Back with Naruto, he woke up, and saw he was lying by a tree. Rubbing his eyes, he said, "What happened? Help. Someone. Please." Naruto heard the voices of a familiar person, and instantly recognized it. Sakura-chan. Naruto yelled, as he ran towards where Sakura was. By the time he got there, he saw her waist deep in quicksand. Immediately, Naruto searched for a branch to pull her out with. With Sasuke and Hinata, the two were walking down the forest, with disappointed facial expressions. "I'm sorry, Hinata-chan," Sasuke said. "If I hadn't made that barrier, and used a different jutsu, then your scroll, and my scroll, and the scroll we were both after, wouldn't have burnt away." Sasuke said. "It's okay, Sasuke-kun. I know you didn't mean to. I'm sorry that I was weak. If I was stronger, we wouldn't have lost the scrolls." Hinata told Sasuke. "Who?" Sasuke sighed. "I just know that Naruto will be on my neck over this. But at least it's only the first day, I'm sure we'll find another scroll." Sasuke said, as he smiled at Hinata, who smiled back at him. With Naruto and Sakura, Naruto scanned the area, from the leaves to the trees, to find anything to pull Sakura out of the quicksand with. He then gave up, knowing there was nothing he could pull her out with. Looking at Sakura, who was a stomach deep in the quicksand, now with a scared facial expression, Naruto came up with a plan to save her. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, Naruto yelled. Poof. 7 clones of himself appeared, making it 8 Narutos. The real Naruto stepped in the quicksand first, while one of the clones wrapped his arms around his waist. After that he walked a few more steps, until another clone wrapped his arms around the other, and then again, and again, until by then Naruto was at arm's length from Sakura, reaching his arms towards her. Sakura reached hers towards him. "Come on, almost there," Naruto groaned, trying to reach for his girlfriend's arms. "Come on," Sakura groaned, trying to reach for her boyfriend's arms. Finally, Naruto managed to grab Sakura's arms, and said, "All right, hold on." Naruto, along with his clones, started pulling Sakura harder and harder. Sakura clenched her teeth in pain, as the clones started to pull her slowly back to the edge of the quicksand. But as they were close, the quicksand glowed blue, and immediately, poof, all the clones disappeared, and Naruto fell a stomach deep into the quicksand, while his arms were still wrapped in Sakura's arms. They both looked at each other, the jade eyes, meeting cerulean blue, both filled with fear now, as they realized they had nothing to do to escape. "Maybe we can still escape. There's a way. There's got to be," Naruto said, as he searched, with slight fear in his voice, for something to get out of the quicksand with. "Naruto-kun, you know there's nothing we can do," Sakura said. Naruto turned to Sakura, and looked at her. "I'm sorry, I couldn't do anything," Naruto said, as he and Sakura began to feel the quicksand going up to their chests. Sakura, seeing the sadness in Naruto's eyes, decided to move closer, along with Naruto, and both kissed each other in the lips. Naruto began to put his hands at the back of Sakura's hair, feeling it, while Sakura wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck, hugging him, bring her body closer to his. As they continued, Naruto had noticed, Sakura's eyes widened, and turned around, to see Sasuke and Hinata staring at them, with confused looks. "What are you doing?" Sasuke asked. "Nothing. Could you two help us out?" Naruto replied. "Why didn't you grab something?" Hinata said. "There's nothing to grab," Sakura said. Sasuke sighed, and lifted a kunai, and threw it towards to the tops of the trees. From there, a branch fell, and Sasuke caught it. Both Sasuke and Hinata grabbed the branch, and passed it to Naruto and Sakura. They both grabbed the branch, while the others pulled them out of the quicksand pit. As Naruto was the first who slowly got out, he then grabbed Sakura by the shoulders, and pulled her out, collapsing on his chest as they tried to get some air back. Thanks. Naruto thanked. But I don't understand what happened. I was pulling Sakura-chan out with some shadow clones, and suddenly they disappeared. Naruto asked. Remember Naruto, this is the Chunin's exam, and many genins are against each other. For all we know, it may have been a trap. Sasuke replied. See, Mizuki-sensei told us about how traps are laid, some being infused with chakra, therefore the ninja who gets trapped in that trap can't use chakra to get out. Sasuke explained. Really? Sakura said, as she got up and gave Naruto a hand. So what happened? Did you find a Earth Scroll? Sakura asked. Both Sasuke and Hinata looked at each other, nervously, before looking back at Naruto and Sakura. It's complicated. Hinata replied. It happened like this. Sasuke began, explaining to Naruto and Sakura that Sasuke had found the scroll, but while at the same time Hinata found the same thing as well. After trying to figure out who gets the scroll, a team of sound genins called Saraisu, Kage, and Hana had tried to steal the scroll, not without having a little fun. Both Sasuke and Hinata had fought well, but the sound genins were beginning to get too much. That was before Saraisu burned up the scrolls by accident in order to combat Sasuke and Hinata. After that the sound genins left to get another scroll, and the one they're looking for, leaving both Sasuke and Hinata empty-handed. And so that happened. Sasuke said. Both Naruto's and Sakura's eyes widened in shock hearing they lost their own scroll. Wow, Sasuke, I thought you could handle people like that. What happened? Grown soft. Naruto teased, with his usual smile. Come on Naruto-kun, we didn't do well with Kageyaki either. Sakura said. Who's Kageyaki? Sasuke asked. Well, he said, he's from the Kesho clan, a clan that can use crystals with their eyes, a special bloodline. He didn't care at all about the exams, but more about revenge against my clan. Naruto began. He was very strong. I've tried to fight back with everything I have, but he was too strong, so I used the Kyuubi's chakra and fought back. Luckily Sakura-chan helped me to snap out of it, otherwise Kageyaki would have been killed. Naruto explained, as he finished. Wait, you said Kyuubi's chakra, right? Sasuke asked, worry in his voice. Yep. Naruto simply replied. Both Sasuke and Hinata looked at each other before looking at Sakura. Sakura-chan, may we speak with you? Hinata said, before Sakura nodded and walked with them. Naruto began to follow. In private, Hinata said, and Naruto stopped. As Sasuke and Hinata took Sakura far from Naruto, they both looked at her. Sakura-chan, what happened? Hinata asked. Kageyaki was threatening with Naruto-kun, saying to use all of his strength, but Naruto-kun couldn't. When he found out I was his girlfriend, and he was my boyfriend, he threatened to kill me. Naruto-kun was mad. He manged, I don't know how, but he managed to get to the Kyuubi's chakra even though Jiraiya-sama managed to seal it. Sakura replied. Then he may know what's going on. Sasuke said. With Choji, Ayato, and Ino. The three genins jumped from branch to branch in the forest of death, as they searched for their friend Naruto. So this Naruto, he's a Jinchuriki, right? Ayato asked, as he called out to Choji and Ino. Yes, he is. Though we didn't know beforehand, but Naruto is a Jinchuriki for the nine-tailed beast. For what you've just felt was the nine tails chakra, meaning that Naruto probably got controlled again by the nine tails. Choji replied, as she explained what happened to Ayato. Maybe it'll be fine this time, I mean Sakura is with Naruto. Ino said. How did he lose control the first time? Ayato asked. It's a complicated story. Choji replied. As the genins rushed through the forest, they stopped, when there was a small large opening with a radius of 50 meters, what seemed strange was that there was a large patch of mud in front of them. Let's go, Ino said, as she ran. Choji was about to run, until Ayato immediately stopped Choji. Ino, wait! Ayato yelled, but it was too late. Ino somehow fell in the mud patch, and started sinking down to her waist. Careful, it's quicksand, Ayato warned. What? Choji exclaimed. Oh crap, Ino said, as she grabbed her right leg, and tried to pull it out, but couldn't move. She tried but couldn't. We have to save, Choji said, in a panic state. All don't worry, Ayato said, as he took a step in the quicksand. To Choji's shock, Ayato's foot didn't go under, in fact it stayed above, and Ayato continued to walk, on the quicksand towards Ino at normal pace. By the time Ayato got to Ino, who was shocked at what he did, he gave Ino a hand. Mind if I help? Ayato said, and grabbed Ino's hand. He then dipped his right arm in the quicksand, and wrapped it around her legs, and pulled Ino out, holding her bridle style, then carrying her back to the edge. I am impossible. He's using the chakra inside of him to walk on the quicksand. Quicksand is a mixture of both mud and water. You'll need a certain amount to walk on, and that's for different types, yet Ayato's walking on it like normal, and by taking one step, even at a slow pace like that has to be challenging. Choji thought to himself, in complete shock. As Ayato reached the edge, he slowly put Ino down to her feet, and let her take a few steps back, with a shocked expression on her face. What? Ayato said. You walked on quicksand. Ino replied. How? Ino asked. It's easy actually. I actually transferred chakra to my feet. Ayato replied. Should we go now? Ayato said. Choji and Ino nodded, before they continued to Naruto. With Kakashi, Shizune, Iruka, and Anko. After the three Junins and Chunins stopped, and saw Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and Hinata, they continued to spy on them. Well, looks like the maggot doesn't need our help now, Anko said. That may be true, Anko, though it's only the beginning of the first test, so I wouldn't call it day without looking further into this, Kakashi said, as he looked at Anko, and back at Naruto. For all we know, Naruto might just beginning to be controlled by the Kyuubi, Kakashi said. Are you sure? Shizune asked. Yes, Kakashi replied. Back in Wave Country, I experienced Naruto using the Kyuubi's chakra against the one called Haku, Zabuza's apprentice. From then on I suspected Naruto would someday get control. After he left, seeing him losing control, and instead being the one controlled, I can't say for sure if Naruto is okay or not. The Kyuubi was sealed for years, so I'm sure it knows its way around the seal Jiraiya-sama placed on Naruto to prevent anything like that ever again, Kakashi explained. But, for what I know from experience with Naruto, this just may be the beginning of losing control again, Kakashi said. Shouldn't we go back now? Tsunade-sama told us to prevent Naruto from being controlled by the Kyuubi. We accomplished it, right? Shizune asked. Not necessarily, Kakashi replied. Yes, Tsunade-sama did tell us to return if Naruto was to be controlled by the Kyuubi, yet I do believe this may not be the last time he gets controlled. For all I know, it may be just the beginning, Kakashi explained. Then we should take Naruto out of the Chunin exams, Iruka said. I know he's a good shinobi, but he's too young. In fact, Sakura, Sasuke, and Hinata are too young as well, even Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino, Iruka said. We've been told to watch but don't do anything unless we have to, idiot. Tsunade-sama taught us that. And besides, for maggots, I really didn't expect them to come this far, heck, even to the finals, the last Chunin exams, Anko said to Iruka, as she stood up in front of him. They're children. They shouldn't even be doing any of this. The Chunin exams comes every 6 months. Twice a year. They're still new and too young to become Chunin, Iruka said, with a stern voice, as his eyes narrowed at Anko. Shikamaru from Asuma's team is the same age as Naruto, and Sasuke. I don't see why they can't become Chunin, Kakashi said, as he eyed Iruka. Still, they're too young, Iruka said. I'm not gonna stand by anymore. Maybe I'm not their sensei anymore, but I still disagree. They're young and they can't be doing any of this, or they'll get hurt or worse, even die. Uruka said, with slight annoyance in his voice, before walking off to the Genins. However, Anko grabbed Uruka's arm, and pulled his dark eyes, to her pupilless purple eyes. Now you're really annoying me. Anko said, with slight anger in her voice. Listen, if these kids didn't want to become shinobi then they shouldn't have entered your class. In fact you're not a great teacher at all. The way I see it you're holding your students back. Anko said. I'm not against for what my students chose, I am well aware the shinobi career was picked by them on their decision. But this is too far. I became a chunin at least 4 years after I became a genin, they were only ninja for a year and yet they hardly have any experience of being a ninja. Uruka said, to Anko. PFF'd, as far as I hear, Kakashi became Junin at the age of 13. Anko said. But that was Kakashi, not them. Uruka said. Listen, I know you may have confidence in them, so do I, but there are certain limits they can take. Look at Naruto for example. Just by reading Kakashi's reports on the incidents of the Kyuubi being used by Naruto, including Jiraiya-sama's reports, I have realized that may have been the problem. I graduated from Naruto because I believed he'll never have to control the Kyuubi, or use it, because that'll just break the seal. But it seems Naruto wasn't the problem, it was you. Uruka said, as he pointed at Kakashi. Instead of preventing Naruto from using the Kyuubi, you made him use it. As I said, there are certain limits they can take. Every time I see Naruto in his limits he uses the Kyuubi's chakra. Because of that, every fight he's gotten into forced him to use it more, and more, weakening the seal. As a sensei you have to take great consideration. Uruka said, with a stern voice. But by looking into your report, I had realized another thing, that would be the fact that you hardly trained Naruto, besides teaching him the tree climbing technique, or exercise. Uruka reminded. I taught Naruto that exercise, to help him to control his chakra. Also the reason I didn't train him was because I needed Naruto to learn more how to control it. Kakashi objected, but he looked down with his eyes. But on the other hand you're right. It is because I wanted Naruto to learn how to control the Kyuubi's chakra. He lost control, and was the one who got controlled. Instead, I almost lost a good student that day, all because of my decision. By allowing Jiraiya-sama to teach him, I believed he could have used the Kyuubi's chakra for the greater good, yet I should have realized what he went through. Kakashi said, before sighing. I should have realized what life he had. Being hated, abused, I should have realized how much pain and suffering he had to take in. Chakra, like the body, is controlled by emotions, and Naruto's is no exception. Not once had anyone allowed Naruto to show who he really is. Because Naruto became a shinobi I had to treat him like one, but besides from many, he was in an emotional state, even though he didn't show it, he cried inside of him, and I neglected that, because of that it may have led to Naruto leaving. Kakashi confessed. Though now I think about it, I was so centered over Sasuke, I should have taught Naruto, and Sakura, at the same time. Kakashi said. And because of that, it also led to Naruto running away. I don't want to hear anything else, you obviously can't be trusted teaching them. Uruka said, as he saw the Genin start to walk away together. This ends here, and now. Uruka said, as he was prepared to go for the Genins, except Kakashi tried to stop him, but before Kakashi could stop him, a kunai was flung in front of him. They all looked, to see a paper bomb. Kakashi grabbed Shizun's arm, while Anko grabbed Uruka, and pushed him away. Boom! It exploded, separating the four ninjas. As Kakashi and Shizun landed on their feet, they looked around for the enemy. Kakashi looked back, to see a shadow figure, jumping straight towards Shizun. Clang! Kakashi immediately blocked the figure's kunai strike with his. With Uruka and Anko, after Anko pushed Uruka down to the ground, they got up, and looked around for the person who threw the kunai. As they looked around, they saw a shadow figure, coming straight at them at high speed. Once the figure got to them, he pushed them towards what appeared to be a brown patch on the ground. As soon as Iruka and Anko got up, they attempted to go for the figure that was before their legs sank into the ground. Anko attempted to get them out, but the mud hung onto her, while Iruka tried to move forward. That was when they realized they were sinking in quicksand. Quicksand, don't struggle, you'll only sink faster. Iruka warned. Anko took off her trench coat, which made Iruka blush, and used it as a rope to grab a nearby branch. And pulled herself up. Once there, she looked at Iruka, who was about waist deep in the quicksand. Looking around, she grabbed a branch, and looked at Iruka, with a look that he was going to be teased. You want me to help you, right? Anko said. Yes, please. Iruka said. Anko chuckled, before giving the branch to Iruka, and pulling him out of the quicksand. With Kakashi and Shizune. As the dark figure shinobi raced towards them, Kakashi pulled a kunai out, so did Shizune. The shinobi ran straight to Kakashi. As he was prepared to punch him, Kakashi dodged it, and Shizune quickly jumped up. Doing a series of hand signs, Shizune then put her palms out. From then her palms glowed chakra blue. Water style. Tsunami jutsu, Shizune yelled, as from her palms water came out, and formed a large wave, which was sent down towards the shinobi. Doing a series of hand signs. Air style. Air dragon jutsu, shouted the shinobi, as a giant air dragon with arms but a long tail and no legs came towards the tsunami, and whacked it with its tail as though it was nothing. The wind dragon then charged towards Shizune, before Kakashi went in front of her, with his Sharingan activated, and did a series of hand signs. Water style. Water barrier jutsu, Kakashi yelled, as he released his hands to the ground, and from there a large water barrier appeared. The dragon collided with the barrier, and was gone. As Kakashi dropped the barrier, he charged towards the shinobi, who jumped back at a kunai strike, while Shizune quickly followed. Shizune attempted to kick the shinobi, but the shinobi jumped up, and was about to strike Shizune. That was before she quickly jumped away, and was prepared to kick him again. The fight went on as Shizune and the shinobi kept going. The fight was soon over. While Shizune fought the shinobi, Kakashi went behind, and did a series of hand signs, and shouted, Fire style, Fire Dragon Jutsu. From Kakashi's palms of his hands, came a large fiery dragon which went towards the shinobi. The shinobi noticed it, so did Shizune. Shizune quickly stepped back, as the dragon soon consumed the shinobi. Water style. Water bomb jutsu, the shinobi yelled, as a large water sphere came out of the dragon, and blew it up, with water splashing everywhere. Boom. Splash. The shinobi looked at Kakashi and Shizune, as he looked fine. This shinobi Shizune, Kakashi said, as Shizune turned to him. I can sense his chakra level. Kakashi said, it seems as though it's compatible with that of an elite Junin's Shizune. Kakashi explained. Hearing the news, Shizune widened her eyes with shock. But that's impossible. In the treaty between Konoha, Sand, and Sound, it was agreed on that there would be no help in the Chunin exams for any shinobi higher ranked. Shizune said, in shock. I didn't say that this shinobi was that of any of the villages, it's too soon to jump to conclusions. Kakashi said, we're gonna have to ask him a few questions. Kakashi said. Immediately, Kakashi did a series of hand signs. Fire style. Fire explosion jutsu, Kakashi shouted, as he held his right palm out, and held it with his left hand. From there, a small sphere of fire grew from his palm, and then expanded, into a large explosion of fire, towards the shinobi. As the fiery explosion made its way towards the shinobi, he did a number of hand signs, before shouting, water style, water barrier jutsu. There from the ground, a large water barrier stopped the explosion of fire. As the explosion of fire kept on going, the barrier evaporated, while the explosion was done, and that the barrier was gone. Behind the shinobi, Shizune came up, and shouted, medical arts, poison gas jutsu. A purple gas of poison came towards the shinobi, as he then did a series of hand signs. Water style. Water Dragon Jutsu, the shinobi, yelled, as a large water dragon made its way towards Shizune, while the gas made its way towards the shinobi. With Iruka and Anko. As Iruka and Anko made their way back to Kakashi and Shizune, another shinobi went in front of them. I see you're going somewhere. The shinobi said, before making a series of hand signs. Water style. Water bomb jutsu. Water covered his body, and began to grow slowly. As it did, both Iruka and Anko immediately jumped away from the shinobi, as the water expanded very fast, and blew up. Boom. Splash. The water splashed everywhere. Iruka did a series of hand signs. Water style. Water cage jutsu. Iruka yelled, as a large water cage came from his mouth, and froze, and went towards the shinobi. Water style. Water barrier jutsu. The shinobi yelled, as a large water barrier came from his palms of hands, and towards the cage, blocking it. Anko then jumped behind the shinobi, and did a series of hand signs. Snake arts. Striking shadow snakes. The snad jutsu. Anko yelled, as thousands of snakes came from her arms towards the shinobi. Water style. Water spikes jutsu. The shinobi yelled, as thousands of water spikes came from his arms towards the snakes, immediately poofing them away. As Iruka saw this, he jumped towards the shinobi, and took a kunai out, and attempted to hit the shinobi with it. But the shinobi jumped up, dodging the kunai strike, and sent a drop kick towards Iruka, and kicked him towards the ground. Anko immediately jumped towards the shinobi. The shinobi turned, but was kicked by Anko. However, he grabbed her feet with his hand, and pulled her up, and then kicked her down towards the ground. With Kakashi and Shizune. As the fight between the shinobis got worse, an eagle was seen, having a red band on its right leg. With Iruka and Anko. Their fight was looking at an eagle with a red band on its right leg. With Kakashi and Shizune. The shinobi landed on the ground, then said, "Well, this is certainly a good thing. It seems as though there's no reason to fight you, Kakashi Hatake." The shinobi said, with slight anger in his voice. "Next time we'll see each other again," he said, before jumping away. With Iruka and Anko. "Looks like I gotta leave," the shinobi said, as he began to jump away. "Wait," Anko yelled. "Why are you here? Is it you, Orochimaru, or is it someone else?" Anko demanded. "You'll find out soon enough," the shinobi said, before jumping away. With Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and Hinata. The four genins were walking down the forest, as they were depressed of losing the scrolls. "I can't believe the scrolls are gone," Naruto said, in a depressed tone. "What do we do now?" "Just find someone who has them, and take them," Naruto said. "It won't be that easy. By now perhaps half of the scrolls have been taken already. It'll be a desperate fight to obtain them. I'm sure anyone will be looking for them. They will fight others to get them. Even if we did obtain one by fighting another team, we would be tired from the fight, and a different team would strike us when we're weak. Also there's Hinata-chan we have to worry about as well," Sasuke explained. "I'm sorry, Sasuke-kun. I should have taken the scroll when I had the chance," Hinata confessed, with guilt in her voice. "I'm sure it's not your fault. It's difficult to see you as the enemy in the exams since we both support the same village," Sakura said. But Hinata tried to talk, but couldn't. "It wasn't your fault," Sakura said. While they were walking, they started to realize the noises that were happening behind them. "What do you think of that anyway?" Naruto asked. "Perhaps other genins are fighting against each other. It may happen," Sasuke replied. With Ayato, Ino, and Choji. "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Choji said to himself, wide-eyed, as he was faced along with Ayato and Ino, around 40 genins, who were all ready to attack. "Look at that, looks like we all got ourselves some small fries," said a genin. "Well, we mostly have the scrolls, so we may as well move on, but hey, there's still hundreds of hours left to go. Why not have a little fun?" Another genin said. This will be good. Another genin said, telling them in their surprise attack, I can tell they're all experienced genins. Ayato said. You think? Choji said. There's no way we can stand up to them. Choji said. I thought you were prepared as genins. Ayato asked. We're mainly a team who operates together, not much of fighting separately. Choji replied. I see. Ayato said. I guess I have to deal with it from here. Ayato said, as he stood a few steps forward, and opened his palm. With Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and Hinata. The four genins were walking down the forest, where they had their heads hung down in shame. If we can't get the scrolls, what are gonna do? Naruto asked. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. Sakura replied. The Chunin exams come every 6 months, I'm sure we can always get it next time. Sakura said. And from a distance they could see an explosion. Boom. Immediately, Genin's eyes were shocked, as they saw the explosion was close to the Chunin exams building. They ran straight towards it, where they came out to a large open field, and saw what appeared to be countless genins unconscious on the ground, while they saw Ayato, Ino, and Choji there. With Ayato having his palm up. What happened? Naruto asked. Ayato, Ino, and Choji looked up towards Naruto. Ino and Choji opened their mouths and attempted to reply. Well, Ayato helped us in a little situation. Choji replied. There's so many scrolls here. Naruto said. As he picked up 2 scrolls, Ayato did the same. Hey Hinata. Hinata turned around the person who called her name, that was Kiba, with Akamaru in his jacket, with Shino. Guess what? Somebody dropped these scrolls, so we picked them up, lucky break huh? Kiba said. While Hinata returned to her team, the rest had gone to the exam building. By that stage it was shown that only a few participants passed. Genins entered. 300. Genins after first stage. 150. Genins left. 20. Surprisingly to everyone, it seemed that only 20 had passed the test. Tsunade walked forward. It seems things are getting interesting. The final and third part of the Chunin exams shall be ready in a month. During that time you may train as you like. With that said, she walked away, leaving everyone to be ready for the next Chunin exams phase. Location. Konoha, specific location, Team 7 training area. On the sunny day of Konoha, it had seemed as though many people in the village were preparing for the third Chunin exams phase of Konoha, and while that would take a month, that was enough time for training. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were with Kakashi, who all three were sitting while their sensei was kneeling on his feet looking at them with his one eye, which showed them a serious expression. To be honest, I'm proud that you three managed to make it out of there. However, some issues came and your strengths had proven weak against them. Kakashi said. It was true, Kakashi had heard of Naruto's and Sakura's run-in with a sound genin who proved to be powerful against them. Even if Naruto had tried to use his Kopi bloodline against him, it proved to be more damaging towards himself than his opponent. Luckily the Kyuubi's chakra helped him, but Kakashi along with a few others had feared things for Naruto. Flashback. Days ago with the Hokage office. In the Tsunade's office, people were there. Kakashi stood in front of the desk while Shizune stood at the right side with Jiraiya, with a worried Tsunade sitting behind her desk with her elbows against the wood worrying about what had happened. And you're sure of this? Shizune asked Kakashi. Yes, I am. Not only did we encounter a few shinobi unidentified in the second part, but sensed Kyuubi's chakra, which I can't be mistaken for. Kakashi replied. Shizune. Jiraiya, can you reseal the chakra? Tsunade asked. Even if I did, it wouldn't make much of a difference. As you know, the seal I placed was a new and advanced seal, but it seems as though the Kyuubi found a way around it. Jiraiya replied. So in a way, even if you've made a stronger seal, the Kyuubi understand how it will work and will undo it. Kakashi said. Take it like this. Imagine that the Kyuubi was moving a bar, and in time that bar would be removed. After understanding how that would work, and even if it was replaced, it would take less time. Jiraiya said. And since Naruto used the Kyuubi's chakra again, it weakened it. Kakashi said. Naruto can't know what happened a few months ago, but still it seems we may not have a choice. The more he uses the chakra, the more he weakens the seal, and that means that he gets closer and closer to releasing the Kyuubi by accident against Konoha. I held back, but the Kyuubi in his body showed power beyond anything we've seen and underestimated the Kyuubi's strength. Tsunade said. Maybe we can tell Naruto, but I believe that even if we do that, Naruto will continue using the Kyuubi's chakra to defend us. He believes he can control, and even though it was the Kyuubi controlling him, I can understand that the Kyuubi had a lot of rage in him that made him do this, and the fault belongs to our end for causing this, so I can only suggest that maybe we should instead teach him how to control it. Kakashi said. The room became quiet. Yet what they heard could be dangerous but also true. It's better that Naruto does learn how to control the Kyuubi's chakra. No matter what, it had to be done, and true, it was their fault for letting this happen to the blonde shinobi with the village. While I may not like this idea, it may be the best solution. Tsunade said. In another case, we still have no idea who those shinobi were or why they were here. Kakashi said. In theory, I may have an explanation. You see, I believe that sound may be doing this. Tsunade said. Really? Shizune said. You see, Konoha is famous for its resources, unlike the other villages we have. More resources than the other 5 great nations have. And for that came war, while the village hidden in the cloud had their sight with the wreckage of having a military outpost. It was us who laid on the land first, causing years of war until we could finally have peace. And even with the treaty, that still made enemies with other shinobi villages wanting the land of Konoha. And another thing would be sound, as the Otokage had mentioned, it was because of the cage that they were forced to fight us, otherwise their contract would be torn apart. Yet sand needs sound more than they need them, since the village is more advanced in its devices than any known shinobi village throughout the shinobi world. There is in the shinobi world of the shinobi world. Tsunade said. Truth be told, she was not the only one. Kakashi and Jiraiya even had their doubts about that also, and would also suggest that sound was in the invasion all the way in hoping to get something out of Konoha. If a village was to take over the resources in the Hidden Leaf, they would become very rich for selling that and powerful, making them the strongest shinobi village. There was enough to even have their own army. We should do something if the sound is in it. Shizune said. I'm afraid that's not gonna happen. You see, we're not the only village that had been attacked with such power. Others in the past had made false accusations so as to take credit from villages from the Cage Summit and or make an excuse, so our case would be no different. Tsunade said. But, Shizune said. It's true, unfortunately, but we have a fighting chance that the Sound Village wouldn't expect us to do anything against them, so we still have a surprise tactic against them, but for now we can't do a thing. Tsunade said. If only we could. Kakashi said. Flashback ends. Kakashi remembered the talk in the meeting. While Kakashi had no idea Naruto could control his chakra, he had been able to think of a way to help him control it with a new tactic he had thought of, and with this he believed this could help him to control. Kakashi breathed in and out, trying to figure out a way how to begin his sentence to them. Still, they thought it was best not to tell their blonde Jinchuriki the truth of what had happened a few months ago with the Kyuubi's chakra in that incident, otherwise they thought could start the whole scenario again, and that was something he tried to ignore from happening again for the second time, especially for what had followed after that. And in any case, Kakashi definitely had to try and make sure he would ignore using the Kyuubi's chakra, since most of his fight had him using it, which made him out of control from time to time, and which may have weakened the seal for the 9 tails to understand. It's working just like said in the office a few days ago, and for whatever reason he had to make him understand not to use it without the truth telling him of what happened. He was surprised, however, that he had not found out about this as of yet, and was still wondering about this very time that when the truth gets out to him, he had to find a way telling him without hurting him. And that thought had not only hurt him but the others at the office a few days ago, but they believe that won't have to come out any soon, for that he didn't know what was happening or what had happened in the past and had hoped that it could stay buried until it was time to tell the truth as they had hoped it would not hurt him too much again. They didn't want to hurt him with the truth, but the time was coming soon, and that could only happen when they had been willing to tell him of what had happened. So the incident had to be kept on hold until they were able to tell him of what had happened a while back a few months ago, and to have one more understanding. Wait till he's ready, or hide it from him until he figures it out on his own or not, and he could understand why he had to control his chakra. As Kakashi saw his students, he looked at Naruto, who seemed to be the one he's most careful of considering his condition. Of course he had heard the reports in his fight against Neji and that he was forced to use the Kyuubi's chakra, and heard many of the villagers felt safer now that Naruto had more control over it, but since his departure they had been feeling a little unease with him around again. Kakashi does know with Naruto he might be able to convince the others again, or may go berserk and accidentally attack the villagers instead. He looked at Naruto. We need you, Kakashi, to watch over Naruto carefully, Tsunade said, in Kakashi's consciousness. Well, as for today, I'll be training the two of you, Naruto, and Sakura," Kakashi announced. Just the two of us? What about Sasuke-tem? Naruto said. Kakashi's eye looked at Sasuke, and then he nodded, while Sasuke then returned it. We already figured out how he would use that in the Chunin exams, Kakashi said. I understand, I'll try to improve it, Sasuke said, as he got up and walked away. Obviously to another training field. Meanwhile Sasuke is training on the move I taught him. I'll be concentrating on the two of you, and starting with chakra control, Kakashi said. Great, more tree climbing, Naruto said, in slight disappointment. Actually Naruto, it's about leaves for no chakra nature, Kakashi said. What's chakra nature? Naruto asked. Both Kakashi and Sakura were shocked to hear that Naruto didn't know anything about chakra nature. Well, it's about elements. As you know, there are 5 elements: fire, earth, water, wind, and lightning, Kakashi replied. And Naruto said, it's about certain elements that you have. I'm sure you remember that you wanted me to teach you how to use the Chidori shortly after the previous Chunin exams, Kakashi said. I remember, I couldn't figure it out, Naruto said. I believed that you already knew the answer, but I guess that the academy must have failed to teach you that one. It's part of lightning, and since you couldn't produce it, you don't have it, Kakashi said. Kakashi-sensei, what makes you say that? Naruto said. Even if you couldn't produce it, lightning sparks would come from your hand, and of course it did not, Kakashi said. Here's how it works, Kakashi said, while holding a piece of paper. This is a special infused chakra paper that is given in the academy, and this represents what element or elements you have. If the paper soils, then you have water. It burns, you have fire. If it torn to pieces, you have lightning. If it cut in half, you have wind. And if it crumbles, you have earth, Kakashi explained. And how do I use it? Naruto asked, as he received the piece of paper. Just pour some chakra in it, your normal chakra, Kakashi replied. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to concentrate, and of course the paper was cut in half, showing Naruto's element. Wind, Naruto said. Good, usually every shinobi has 2 to 3 elements, and I believe it's best to give you another, Kakashi said. Naruto received the other paper and did it again, and once again the paper was drenched into water, showing his second element. Water, Naruto said. That's enough for now, Kakashi said. Wind, and water, Naruto said. Sakura cares to tell us your chakra element, Kakashi said. My elements are earth and water, Sakura said. So it's settled, Kakashi said. Today's training will depend on your element chakra, and for now you two will understand how to use it, Kakashi said. There are leaves everywhere. I want the two of you to concentrate your chakra on them, Kakashi said, as he began to leave. Kakashi-sensei, wait, Sakura called out to her sensei. What is Sakura? Kakashi said, bending down towards her. Chakra element training usually requires months of understanding on one's chakra element. Naruto-kun just found out about this, I'm scared. If you push this hard on him, he's Goanna, you know. Sakura whispered. I know you feel for him and saddened what happened the last time, but this is exactly why I picked this training method not out of nowhere and due to the necessity of chakra control that is required in order to perform this. It will help him control his Kyuubi's chakra and hope so. Kakashi whispered. Hey Kakashi-sensei, my leaf just cut itself on the top. Naruto shouted. And I believe it will help. Kakashi said, before leaving. Hey Sakura-chan, look how this works. If I just try and use my element chakra on it, I can cut this leaf here, watch. Naruto said, as he held out a leaf, and then covered it with his other hand and then let it go. She saw the top was slightly cut. That's good, Naruto-kun. I think I can help. Sakura said, as she held Naruto's hand, covering it with her hand on top of his. What are we doing? Naruto said, slightly blushing, with Sakura doing the same. Well, first things first, we need to lower your chakra. It's too much for the leaf but not too little or the leaf will never get cut. If we then lower your chakra and pour it in the leaf at a constant rate, then the process will take a much quicker pace, so it won't take long, and then once that release. Sakura said. Naruto did exactly what she told him to, and he did. It took a minute tops of concentrating his chakra in the leaf and what she had said to him before he had finally let go of, and the leaf was halfway cut through, showing how much Naruto had managed to progress with her help. Thanks Sakura-chan. Naruto said. No problem Naruto-kun. Sakura said. Sakura-chan, I may have said this, but it's about dreams I've been having lately. About the Kyuubi, and what he's saying to me. He said I tried to kill everyone and that my anger was finally flown freely throughout my body and that I tried to hurt everybody I knew. Including you. I don't know if I should trust him, but it seems too real to be fake. That in fact it makes sense with the injuries I had. They seem too serious, like I was in a fight. I've been beaten plenty of times, but I don't know why any of them been as harsh as the one I had received. What Granny Tsunade had told me or anybody has, I think it must be more to it. Naruto said, which shocked Sakura. Well, it is, the Kyuubi, a monster that slaughtered hundreds of people, but you're not him, only his prison guard, and that whatever he tells you can or could be a lie that he's trying to convince you of, and the injuries probably from shinobi that attacked you. Sakura said. That happened too, but I don't think it's that. I've been beaten so many times even from shinobi, but I don't know if any of them had managed to do this much damage to me. And also it's the chakra. I feel the Kyuubi's chakra level. In fact, it was so high I never felt it before, and that I think it was what harmed my body. I don't know if I'm crazy or telling the truth, but I have no idea what happened to me back then. When I was walking to you that day, I've seen nobody except for you with the others. Naruto said. What did Kyuubi say? Sakura asked, trying to see what happened. He said I did meet you that day and you threw the necklace at me. Naruto replied. What? Sakura said. It doesn't make sense. I gave the necklace to you when you were at my apartment and I never thought of giving it to you until then, but I felt when I gave it to you that it felt familiar, so familiar it happened before, like it was actually real no matter what I think of it. Naruto said. Well, I guess that must be the Kyuubi. Sakura said. Would the Kyuubi really do something like this? I don't think so. Naruto said. For this Sakura began to worry. Naruto was questioning himself a lot. She really didn't like to lie to Naruto over this, but she knew if she was to tell him the actual truth, it's most likely that he could get controlled by the Kyuubi, but she thought it's best to save the truth until he has full grasp over the Kyuubi. But if Naruto was to continue questioning his own actions, then it's most likely he will find out the truth about what he had done that time, and she cannot let that happen. She cannot let pain come to the one she loved the most, Naruto. Look, what I think, that the Kyuubi is fooling you. I don't want you to get overworked for this. The council tried to get rid of you and I was really worried. Every time I saw you on the bed it hurt. And that's not all. The doctors, the villagers, even the shinobi that made an oath to protect us, protect you, tried to kill you. I was so worried for you, I cried every time, but now you're okay, and now people are trying to help, I'm with you now. Sakura said. This shocked Naruto, though made him happy, shocked him quite a lot since he'd thought he never hear anything like this to anyone. Not even Sakura, but he did. He rewound the words and tried to find some indication if the girl he was talking to was Sakura. And it turned out it was. This made him so happy that he couldn't even now question himself or the pain he was subjected to while he was in a coma. The annoying thought of him coming inside of his head of how he was beaten, how he was hurt, or how he was in pain were all but vanished as he decided to smile at Sakura with his eyes smiling and his teeth, the one smile she loved the most, and hoped no matter what it would never go away. Thank you, Sakura-chan. I love you, I really do. Naruto said. I love you too, Naruto-kun. Now let's continue training. Sakura said. Unknown to the two, Kakashi was standing in the forest watching their conversation. Well, I'm glad that's sorted out once and for all, for now at least, for as long as Naruto doesn't remember. Kakashi said. If Naruto remembers, well, I don't think it would be considered an event of him turning into the Kyuubi, but I do think it's best to keep him in the dark until he learns how to control the chakra. Kakashi continued. For all we know so far, that was only the tip of the iceberg for the Kyuubi's chakra we've witnessed, and as for I'm concerned, there may have been more hiding. A human body so young as Naruto's is not yet suited for handling that kind of full power without the necessary training. In fact, we're lucky Naruto is still here standing and breathing and alive as we speak. If he went higher, we could have lost him for good, and I'm not worried about the Kyuubi. We can always recapture the demon with the methods we have, but Naruto's life is the one thing we can't recapture. I'm sorry, Minato-sensei, for not trying hard enough to support you, son. Kakashi said, as he looked up at the sky. With all that said, Kakashi would have to continue doing the one thing he always does to lift his spirits up no matter how many missions, battles, fights, or near-life scenarios he's been in, the one thing that made him feel very safe, and that was his copy of Jiraiya's book, the Makeout series he was reading so far in his life. Location: Hokage's tower, specific location: Hokage office. So the set for the stage of the Chunin exams is ready, huh? Tsunade said, looking at the Anbu right in front of her. Very well, then inform our guests and the messengers too. It'll take a while before they come to Konoha. Tsunade said. The Anbu bowed then left in a flash. Still, I am very concerned. Tsunade said. Sarutobi-sensei, you've made a mistake when you allowed the last exams to continue, but now I think of it, you weren't left much of a choice, and neither am I. In this case, I hope we can prevent the same thing from happening again. Tsunade whispered. Though truth be told, it could either be our guests, or Orochimaru already has a brand new plan of attack against Konoha. Either way, we're gonna take extra precaution this time around. Tsunade whispered. Shizune looked at her mentor with concerned eyes. Obviously, she too was slightly scared. As far as she's concerned, she heard of the attack. So many shinobi died, so many gave their lives unexpectedly, including the third Hokage himself. They didn't know how to respond, or to prevent it from happening again. Tsunade-sama, I think, I may have a thought. Shizune said. Speak please. Tsunade allowed her to continue. Well, you said the fourth Hokage, Naruto-kun's father, made enemies in the war. Shizune reminded. Yes, a lot of them, unfortunately. Tsunade said. What if some of them are working against Naruto-kun, even Orochimaru, especially since we know he has the Kopi in his blood? Shizune said. I wouldn't be so surprised. Orochimaru, he was close to Minato. From what me and Jiraiya believe, he had attempted to use Minato as a weapon since he had the bloodline, but still very few people at the time knew Naruto was Minato's son. But of course, since we were forced to reveal his true identity, I believe that Orochimaru will know shortly too. This may of course change his goals. Tsunade said. Goals? Shizune asked. Yes. Tsunade replied. As we know. Tsunade began. Sasuke was the target for Orochimaru considering his bloodline, but of course for another bloodline then can copy and keep jutsus and other bloodlines is worth 100,000s if not millions times worth than his. Tsunade explained. But the shinobi we encountered, Anko, told me and Kakashi that they weren't in league with Orochimaru, but perhaps someone else. Shizune said. Yes, I know, but there's always a possibility they just said that so they could keep their true mission a secret. Tsunade said. But what makes you think that Orochimaru wouldn't be after Naruto-kun? Shizune asked. Well, because most of Minato's enemies have a thirst for vengeance against him and his family. Sure, he's been gone for a while, but that's not gonna stop them from getting their hands on Naruto. Tsunade said. Who else would want to use him for power? Shizune said. Well, that would probably be Orochimaru by now, or Danzo. Tsunade said. What about Jiraiya-sama? Shouldn't he be protecting him? Shizune asked. He's protecting Naruto from the Akatsuki. They're hunting Jinchurikis, and Naruto's on the list for that. They could possibly pose a greater threat to him than Orochimaru would, considering he was a member too. Tsunade replied. What? Shizune exclaimed. Guess you never heard. Jiraiya had discovered that Orochimaru was once a part of that organization. As far as he understands, he was not the strongest member within it, so as part of our understanding someone stands a higher power than Orochimaru does. Tsunade said. And about Orochimaru, how do we know he isn't gonna attack Konoha or believe it? Shizune asked. Orochimaru has lost a lot of power. That attack was meant to be the one that destroys Konoha so he could rebuild it in his personal image, but of course Naruto defeated Gaara, so he prevented Konoha's destruction and Orochimaru lost the use of his chakra. Tsunade said. And because of that he's weak. Shizune said. Exactly, and for that, it's most unlikely now he'll be able to attack Konoha. Tsunade said. Shizune looked at Tsunade while holding Taunton, as she grabbed a drink from her cabinet and drank a small cup of sake. How would we go against the enemy, whoever we might be facing, Tsunade-sama? If they come, I heard of the attack from the previous Chunin exams and so many lost everything including the third Hokage himself. I'm scared that you could be as well. Shizune said. It won't happen, because we've learned from that mistake already. I already stationed Anbu now on every possible route to the village. Divisions of shinobi are gonna now wait at almost every entry point to the village, and Jiraiya will be here too. Tsunade said. It was by then Shizune's worries had lightened up a little, yet, the thought of another attack on Konoha scared her, including Tsunade's head. After the first attack, the walls of Konoha were destroyed. The villages is meant to be the strongest, and receiving an attack like that didn't only damage Konoha physically but also morally as well, and meant by that. Starting from that point onwards, Konoha's enemies began to stand up greater against the village, hidden in the leaves, as though now the fear Konoha had put into them were now gone. That's why there was recent retaliation in prisons where Konoha had put away many of its enemies were starting to go crazy once news hit them when the village was hit hard by Orochimaru. And now, Konoha had also been forced to use Chunins and Genins led by Junins to do high-leveled ranking missions in order to balance out the shinobis, since they lost a lot from the first attack, and leads to even uncertainty within the villagers too when they started to doubt the strength the village has. It is also said that, now with the third Hokage killed by Orochimaru, that anything is possible. Including the destruction of Konoha. Naruto's departure and Kyuubi's Charka rampage didn't help either, because now the villagers were getting worried over the fact Naruto had lost the control of his chakra. Rumors were also quickly spread that the Kyuubi had control over its host, and attempted to return to Konoha, to destroy the village once and for all. Of course, with the luck of Naruto's strength and will, he had managed to reseal the Kyuubi within him and prevented him from attacking Konoha. This could also be considered that Naruto has saved the village again from another tailed beast from destroying the village. And of course, with the events that followed, many of the next generation distrusted their parents for the lies that came into their heads about the blonde Jinchuriki and moved away, causing a huge fight between the last and next generation of the village. For Naruto, he was still uncertain of how it all began, which Tsunade thought was best to keep it that way. Naruto accidentally reawakening the Kyuubi was the less she needed. Tsunade-sama, may I wonder about the Kage's anger against the Namikaze clan? Shizune said. I'll calm them down, I will give you an assignment. Tsunade said. Assignment? Shizune asked. Yes. Tsunade replied. Which is? Shizune said. I want you to team with Kakashi at the moment. I suspect you can help him monitor Naruto through the month until the end of the Chunin exams to come up with some intel on his behavior. I also want you to be the one to calm him down when he needs to be in case if the Kyuubi tries to take control of Naruto ever again. Tsunade said. Hi Tsunade-sama. Shizune bowed then left. Tsunade then brought her hands in a lock with one and the other and put it against her nose while leaning in them, which was supported by her elbows, which were supported by the table. With Kakashi. After leaving Naruto and Sakura, he left to go see Jiraiya, who has just returned shortly from a mission from investigating the whereabouts of the Akatsuki. Right now Jiraiya was leaning against the bridge with his arms crossed and his elbows against the rails. So how's Naruto's condition? Jiraiya asked, in an immediate tone. Fine for now, Kakashi replied, in a calm voice. Well, that's good to hear. Listen, I heard about the assignment you've been given. Jiraiya said. Well, it's not too difficult, but never had I been given an assignment to watch over my student. Kakashi said. Well, you are his sensei. Jiraiya said. But not knowing I'm there or not seeing me, I wish I could deal with this sooner. Luckily we got another chance to deal with it. Kakashi said. Yes, I believe that I may have a way of fixing this whole Kyuubi problem once and for all. Jiraiya said. Really? Kakashi said, intrigued. Yes, supposedly, one of my best buyers for my books is the Raikage's brother, Killer Bee, a man who is the eight-tailed Jinchuriki and has full control over it. Jiraiya said. Even though that's true, how can you suspect the Raikage to easily give us that chance, even with the peace treaty? It's most likely he has the traits of his predecessor and wouldn't give Konoha the chance to gain more power over the Nine Tails if he believes. Kakashi said. Maybe so, but he's not the exact same Raikage that forced us to send Hiyashi's body to him, and he despised the former Raikage. He called him a power-craved man. Jiraiya said. Shizune has also been assigned to watch Naruto's behavior, although, I don't suspect that Shizune has anything against Naruto. Kakashi said, looking at Jiraiya. Almost forgot, she hasn't been much of a person in Konoha. In fact, the last time you've seen Shizune you were only a genin. Though her and Tsunade left Konoha long before the Nine Tails broke out of Kushina and started to rampage. And all of Shizune's loved ones were gone way before they left Konoha. Nawaki and Dan were the last straw, and that is the reason why she left. Her uncle was gone, and so Tsunade was the only close thing as family to her. She was already spoken to the details of the Kyuubi attack and has no anger against Naruto. All she requires is to help him as well, since it seems she treats Naruto more like a little brother than a monster. Jiraiya said. Kakashi looked at Jiraiya and thought. He was indeed a genin passing on their graduation. It was the same day as Shizune graduated, and later that year she left with Tsunade. Truth be told, Kakashi actually liked Shizune. Of course that was a slight crush, and he had kept it hidden inside of him then. Since she left he had never seen her again, not until she came back with Tsunade, already a matured Junin-leveled woman, though, her happy attitude didn't change at all. Well, it was years since I have last seen Shizune, and well, she was one of the best genins back then, and seems now it had followed to be one of the best Junins to today. She's strong, and to have been able to take care of herself, but in a situation with Naruto may be difficult, as I believe that she's a bit more emotional than I am, and you know it as well. Kakashi said. Shizune has been the emotional type for sure, and to continue that as well, but her medic expertise is needed with Naruto. In case he does lose control again, he will need his body healed, as the effects were devastating when he went that far into the Kyuubi's power. Jiraiya said. And I believe that. Kakashi said. Does he remember yet? Jiraiya asked. No, not yet. Kakashi replied. I'm sure you want to know when we can tell him. Jiraiya said. Yes. Kakashi said. Well, until the end of the Chunin exams, of course. He needs to be stronger if he can take the Kyuubi's chakra, and we believe it might be enough time before Naruto can absorb all of this that had happened to him. He's Minato's son, he's Kushina's son, he had a bloodline, he's a descendant from the Uzumaki clan, he's a descendant from the Namikaze clan, he was chosen to be the Kyuubi's jailer, and he attacked us when he went out of control and attempted to destroy Konoha as well. I'm sure that's not too much for Naruto to absorb. Jiraiya said, with the last part a bit of sarcasm. Kakashi understood. So far it has been a strange series of events that Naruto learns more secrets of himself than he can handle. He couldn't take the fact that he had the Kyuubi inside of him when he was attacked by Mizuki, and now the fact that he's the son of two great heroes that gave their lives to the village in order to protect them and was promised he would have a nice life, which was broken by that of the civilian council and of the villagers as well, adding, the attack on his friends and family when he lost control of the Kyuubi would be too much for him, and could cause to go a bit crazy. Understood. Kakashi said. Good. Jiraiya said. And of the Akatsuki? Kakashi asked. Well, there are no sightings yet. Jiraiya replied. Then I guess we will never know what they're up to or why they needed Naruto, or, more specifically, the Kyuubi inside of him. Kakashi said. No. Jiraiya said. Well, can I ask about this Killer Bee? Exactly how did you make contact with him first? Kakashi asked. Well, when I was selling the rights for the book series to be a movie upcoming, he came to the studio and then he came to me begging me to let his rap album play in it. Jiraiya replied. Rap. Kakashi said. I've lived a very long life, Kakashi. Faced foes, opponents, and even escaped impossible scenarios. But in all that time I've never come across the most terrible, unbelievably bad rapper until I met him. But he did offer me a deal. He would only stop coming after me if I at least allowed them to play a song from his soundtrack in the film, and for all the trouble he would offer anything, so I wanted him to train Naruto for a while. But he told me that he needs to be strong first, at least Chunin leveled strength, otherwise he could break apart during the training he would receive. Also, this might take a while before he could finally learn to control the Kyuubi's chakra, so he would be gone for a while. Also, that would put a slight member of your team off for a while and deactivate Team 7 for a while as well until we would return back to Konoha as well. Jiraiya said. What do you mean by that? Kakashi asked. Well, it would take at least 6 months, but I've been thinking of a 2.5-year training trip for him for a while now as well. Jiraiya replied. So I'll have to discuss with Tsunade-sama on the status of Team 7 during that time. Fine, but Team 7 won't accept any new members along the way. Kakashi said. Of course not. Jiraiya said. And on another note, what will be of Naruto when he comes back? Kakashi asked. He will still be the same but much stronger. Jiraiya replied. If Naruto doesn't become Chunin by the end of the exams, what would happen? Kakashi asked. Well, the trip will continue. Jiraiya replied. Really? Kakashi said. Really? Jiraiya said. And also what? Kakashi said. Well, the trip continues until Naruto is Chunin leveled, whether he become Chunin or not, he still would be able to become a Chunin leveled shinobi, but my objective is to make it higher, let's say Junin leveled instead, and by the stage we get back Naruto's strength would be measured and I'm sure he will be made Chunin when we arrive. Not surprising, Danzo actually insisted that Naruto is put in route instead, where he can train him instead to become something more, obviously, to become a weapon treated with no humanity whatsoever by his user. Jiraiya said. I see. Kakashi said. Well, it's been nice talking to you, Kakashi, but I have to get back, or Tsunade will hit my head on the ground for being late until the entire tower collapses on me. Jiraiya said. All right, Kakashi said, and Jiraiya left. Kakashi then started to read his book again and thought he had at least a little bit of peace, so he can enjoy it, but he was wrong when Shizune appeared in front of his face looking at him wearing her Junin uniform. She looked annoyed and mad at Kakashi, maybe because he was reading a book that she found very offensive to her. Kakashi simply looked at her with his lazy eye, and then back at his book again. Excuse me, Shizune shouted at Kakashi. Well, it's been made for the public and is legal. I mean, I did buy it and I intend to finish reading it. Kakashi said. And the book's been out for months. Exactly how many times have you read it? Shizune asked. Let's see if I always finished in a week's time, and the time since I bought it since its release I believe I read it about, maybe, 33 times or 37. Kakashi replied. What? Shizune exclaimed. Slap. A slap burn was on Kakashi's left side of his face as he looked at Shizune. Well, that wasn't nice. Kakashi said. Yeah, right. Also, I came here under orders of Tsunade-sama. I came because I wanted to understand Naruto-kun's current situation and watch over him with you in case he ever loses control of the Nine Tails again. Shizune said. Yes, I know. Kakashi said, putting his book in his back pocket. I need to understand what he's doing right now. Shizune said. Well, he's training with his chakra to get some better control over it, and it seems as though he had gotten the hang of it already. Also, it seems as though he's learning better methods as we speak. Point 2, Kakashi said. And the situation from a few months back? Shizune asked. He's gotten, let's say, curious, as now he's a bit cautious of what he has done. The Nine Tails, no less, has been tempering with his head, trying to help him remember. Kakashi replied. I see. Has he shown any signs of being controlled, or at least been talking to the Nine Tails in public? Shizune asked. No, not at all, but it may have been happening in private though. Maybe you don't want us to know. Kakashi replied. If that's the case, then we may have to remove him from the Chunin exams. Shizune said. I don't know. Removing Naruto from the Chunin exams would only drive further suspicion and will make him remember, especially if he has passed the second phase. Kakashi said. Then what do we do? Shizune asked. Nothing but trust in Naruto's strength. Kakashi replied. I've only met Naruto-kun for a while now, but I don't think he's capable handling that amount of chakra just yet. Maybe he needs a bit more training. It's the Nine Tails chakra after all. We're talking about a very large quantity of energy contained within a child, and I know Naruto-kun so far is capable of handling anything. Believe me, I saw it. He defeated Kabuto, who gave 2 of the 3 legendary Sanins a hard time, and me as well. We barely caused any scratches on him, and Naruto-kun used his Rasengan for the first time to beat him in one hit, but to control the Nine Tails chakra is a level even beyond that of a Junin's. It's impossible. Shizune said. You know those exact thoughts as well when he became my student, but since then Naruto seems to have a knack at pulling the impossible to be possible, and you'll see that, soon. Kakashi said. You're talking about the Wave Country incident, aren't you? Shizune asked. Yes, I am, and just like that, he used the Nine Tails chakra to defeat Haku. Kakashi replied. Even if he achieves attempting something like that without damaging his body, how do you think he's gonna be okay? We're talking about great power. Villages, nations, bandits, even our enemies would go too far to get that power anyway they can. Shizune said. And in order to do that they have to beat Naruto first, and that's a real test. Kakashi said. But with the villagers, they seem to be more cautious around him more than ever. How can you tell his attitude will be the same around them? Remember Gaara? Shizune asked. Yes, I do. Kakashi replied. He learned to control the One Tails chakra and use it against the villagers in his village. Shizune said. Because of his father, the now deceased Kazekage, made that happen. Tsunade-sama will never make the same mistake. I agree, Naruto has his moments where his anger gets the better of him, but for the right reasons, to be honest. Neji, Gaara, Sasuke, even Tsunade-sama, as I hear, all were once consumed by the darkness of our hearts and made us someone we would despise, and yet Naruto seemed to have pulled them out of it. I don't think Naruto will ever be put into that situation ever. He'd protect every villager with his life despite what they have done to him in the past and what they did to him as well. Even for years of anger against him and beatings can never put Naruto into that position ever. He will never be like Gaara once was, never ever. Kakashi said. But, Shizune said. Now if you're done believing that my student isn't capable of controlling the Nine Tails chakra and going on a rampage in Konoha, I have some students to attend to. Kakashi said, before leaving. Though Kakashi was, Naruto had the chance to control the Nine Tails chakra. Shizune felt a little ashamed that she said that to Kakashi. Even about Naruto, and now she does believe he can do it. Though her worries didn't go away, as Kakashi said, Naruto took some people out of difficult situations before, but he would never put himself in their shoes. Even for Gaara, he would never act like the way Gaara did with his villagers once before he fought Naruto. He died protecting them despite that they may celebrate his death like it was a good thing, but he would be willing to protect them and the people that are the closest to him also, and she remembered that he was also the one that brought Tsunade back. Memories came back of her younger self looking at her mentor drinking her emotions away in sake and crying over the loss of her two most closest people in her life for what happened all those years ago. Her tears and her gambling addiction were there as well, until she met Naruto, which changed her for the better, being more aware of her actions and repaying all of those debts she had once been given all those years ago, especially those from major influential villages. Naruto changed her, and for the better too. Shizune was also like the others, Naruto's friends, Tsunade, and now even Sakura were willing to give anything to make Naruto happy, especially since he made some of them happy for his sake, mainly because he was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Leaf Shinobi of Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves. And best at it. This was just the beginning, the real secret will unfold in the next episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to see what happens next. See you again in the next journey of Uzumaki Empire 2.0.